Welcome in to Check the Mic. Week 1 review, Monday morning. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. That's right, we're live. It's 7 a.m. Used to be head-to-head with Good Morning Football, but they're afraid to compete, Sam. As I've said, they've moved back an hour, so it's just us this morning.
Now we're beating them to the punch.
We are.
We're getting in first.
They're still sleeping over there, but we're ready to go. Check the Mic is live. Week 1 is in the books. We've got, 15 games to discuss here, because we'll even talk a little Thursday and Friday night football. Are you ready to go?
I am. You almost trademark infringed again.
What I do?
With your Michael Buffer. That's where I thought you were going with that.
Let's get ready to talk football. Let's get ready to talk football.
You don't want to drop those invoices on the 33rd team. They're not ready for that.
They don't know how many times we've been in litigation due to things that I've said or potential litigation. All right. You ready to do this thing?
Yep, let's go.
For those who have subscribed to the YouTube channel already, we appreciate that. But you've probably already heard us talk a little bit of Thursday night football, Friday night recaps. We'll be doing that. We keep going live, and you never know when we're going to go live on YouTube.
Could be any time.
So make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're in podcast land, we're going game by game here. So let's do it. Thursday night football, Kansas City Chiefs 27, Baltimore Ravens 27-20. Chiefs win. Came down to Isaiah Likely barely landing out of bounds on
just a toe,
the final play of the game, and we were robbed of a John Harbaugh go-for-2 situation to win the game, because that's what he was going to do.
Yeah, I mean, he had, right? Because obviously they thought they scored, and then it was on review that it got taken away. So between those two things, when they thought they had scored, Harbaugh was calling to go for 2. So he was going for the do or die, winner takes all, let's go get this. We were not going to see overtime based off that tying touchdown. We were going to see a win or a loss.
We were, and it was a win for the Chiefs, who I thought looked like the defending champs. The offense a little bit more explosive than it was last year. We saw the Xavier Worthy with 2 touchdowns on 3 touches. Patrick Mahomes playing a pretty clean game. The defense making the big stops when needed for the Chiefs.
Wait, we were a few days after the fact now. Your initial take was you were disappointed in both teams. Now the Chiefs are the Chiefs.
Wrong game. That was that
was the Eagles.
Packers. Still disappointed.
So you're still convinced by the champion Chiefs.
Yes, okay. I will express my disappointment
in the
Packers and Eagles teams in a few minutes here.
Okay.
No, but I thought the Chiefs also had a good game plan. Remember, they kept just feeding Rashee Rice lined up against Ravens linebackers. So look, they were good offensively. They did their thing. The Ravens offense, I think, was more of an interesting story because Lamar played like it was the AFC Championship. He was running around like crazy. A lot of felt like for Lamar, we always talk about, he's a pocket passer and he wants to sit in the pocket first and then scramble second. Felt like there was a lot of plays the other night where he was sitting back, waiting for the seas to part, and then making his move to scramble and run and try to be the playmaker for the Ravens the other night.
It's interesting. There were a number of games this week where they ended up reasonably close, or even they ended up like the opposite way score-wise that the game felt. This was kind of one where it came down to literally that inch, right? The toe of Isaiah Likely on the line, and that's the difference between potentially winning the game and losing. So we're down to a play, basically. But it really did feel like Kansas City was significantly better in this game, and that Baltimore was kind of clinging on to it, largely by Lamar Jackson just taking it upon himself to make plays on the ground, generally. And the biggest thing coming out of this was, like, for Kansas City, it felt like just another game. This is what we do. Another W, move on to the next one. This felt like Baltimore's Super Bowl. Like, they were so amped up for this game, even after the fact. Like, they were not treating this like just another game, on to the next one. They, like, the only person in the world that doesn't think that was not a touchdown is Lamar Jackson still. He's like, I still believe it was a score. Except we can prove it isn't. Like, I thought that briefly, and then I saw a different replay, and it's like, no, okay, he did clearly step out. It's not a touchdown. Lamar's like going to his grave, being like, nah, I'm convinced it's a score. I don't think it's a good thing for a team that, expects to be potentially winning that division, being an AFC contender, meeting Kansas City again in the playoffs. you should sort of have your sights set on bigger things than the week one game that you came just short of.
That was one of my big takeaways as well, Sam. Lamar playing so hard, dropping his shoulder, almost like as Chris was saying it on the broadcast, it was like he was in Lamar's helmet, and Lamar's like, "Watch this, Chris. I'm going to drop my shoulder on 3rd and 10, 2 yards short of the sticks." Lamar was playing like it was a championship game. Finishes with 16 carries. Obviously, some were designed, but he was scrambling 10 or 11 times was the final tally on scrambles. It was a lot. And for the Ravens, remember how good they were at just taking care of business on the field last year during the regular season? They whooped the Lions. They whooped the Niners. Every good team that was thrown up against them, the Dolphins, they beat them and beat them handily, but they lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs. I am fascinated to see what this looks like mentally for the Ravens going forward, putting so much into a week one game, 16 more games to go, and a playoff run, presumably. I think in the X's and O's, from an X's and O's standpoint, figuring out how Derrick Henry's going to fit in, the flow of Derrick Henry with Lamar Jackson. Sometimes it was working well, other times it was out of sync, and Lamar being really late in the play clock, making play checks and everything. I think they've just got some things to iron out. I still think the Ravens will be fine, but like the mental psyche, I think, of losing to the Chiefs after putting so much into it, I'm interested to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I think they had two problems in this game. The first is that I think they were they erred on the wrong side of that emotional investment part of it. And I think it's a fine line. Like, how do you get yourself amped up for a game but not lose control of yourself because you're so emotionally invested in it? I think they lost control of themselves. And there were a couple of late hits on, were they both on Mahomes? Certainly one of them was, which is just like, it was exactly like that Joseph Asai play a couple of years ago for the Bengals in the AFC Championship game, right? Just a dumb penalty that you only make when all the pressure is there, when the game's on the line, when you understand the consequences, and when you're that emotionally hyped up for it. They were so like over the top that it cost them in the game. And then the other thing is, I felt like the entire offense is not yet a single cohesive, coherent unit. It's too segmented. Like, these are the things we do for Derrick Henry. These are the things we do when we want to do like the normal passing offense. Right. Like, it's all too segmented and compartmentalized. They need to figure out how to tie it all together and make it all work without being like, all right, now we go to this block of the play sheet, And it's like, the obvious part was that the running backs they basically have two completely different roles, right? When Derrick Henry's on the field, we're running the ball. When Justice Hill is on the field, we're passing the ball. And we swap when we want to do one or the other. There are teams that sort of do that. They have a third down back. They have a more traditional running type of running back. But everything Baltimore was doing felt like that. Like, they have different packages depending on what they want to do. And it's too easy right now to telegraph exactly what they're planning on doing on the play. They need to figure out how to tie that all together and make it more difficult to diagnose before the snap.
And as we highlighted Thursday night, Justice Hill, one-on-one with Chris Jones with the game on the line and holding his own.
Fair play to Justice Hill for holding up. I mean, that's a suicide assignment, and he actually did his job twice.
Did. When Chris Jones beats, tackles all the time
in
those situations to
the
win the game.
Second-round rookie offensive tackle, Chris Jones is like, IDs him with a bullseye as soon as he comes on the field. It's like, I'm going after that guy, takes him down. Meanwhile, small running back Justice Hill gets hung out to dry one-on-one with him twice with the game on the line and does his job, like holds him up.
Anything else on Chiefs-Ravens?
It's
tough thinking back sometimes.
We have to at least mention, and maybe this is a thing for Wednesday when we talk to Dean Blandino about it, we have to at least reference the craziness that the officials did early in the game with, hey, we've decided to go nuts on illegal alignment.
This is perfect for when I used to yell at you on a Monday morning. I don't want to talk about the officiating.
Right.
This is a perfect time for us to say,
we'll get to
the Ravens. Yeah, we'll get to it. On Wednesday, when we have Dean Blandino on the show, we will talk about the Ravens, who felt like they were made an example of in the illegal formation rulings,
correct,
where the Chiefs were not. And I think we should touch on that Wednesday. We'll have Dean on here every Wednesday talking about the most controversial calls and trends around the league.
And that's a good one as well, because I think it's a lot about process as much as was it the correct call or not.
Correct. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it's
for
about
sure.
how they did that, and because Ronnie Stanley was saying they hadn't warned them, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a perfect week one Dean fodder for Wednesday. The last thing we should mention, I guess, is Xavier Worthy, who got 2 touchdowns, right? A rushing touchdown, a receiving touchdown. Immediately you were getting everybody going, how did the league let the Chiefs get Xavier Worthy? It's like, look, he looked good. I mean, he was fast, but the running play, the end around was it reverse? If you pause it like a couple of seconds into that play, like the entire Chiefs offense is out in front of him like a convoy. All he has to do, if he beats the linebacker to the second level, to the gap, he's got a touchdown because of the road grading bulldozer in front of him. And then the receiving play was a complete coverage bust. So I think his speed is useful. I think it will play. I think he's dangerous, and he definitely opens some things up. But, let's not get too out of control because of that a couple of plays.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first one, his speed made that work, even with the great convoy.
Maybe.
The speed made that look explosive.
I think
the second one was just an absolute coverage bust.
I think a lot of players score in that first one.
We'll see. We won't see, though. You never get to see that.
No,
all right, I got no more use for this game.
Done.
Friday Night Football in Brazil. Philadelphia Eagles 34, Packers 29. Again, if you're on YouTube, we've discussed this game. We did it live. We had a live reaction, but we'll cover it again. Saquon Barkley, 2 rushing touchdowns, another through the air. The bigger story, wins and losses matter, but Jordan Love coming out of the game, second to last play of the game, third to last play of the game with a knee injury. It's an MCL, I believe. We're looking at a few weeks here. Correct. Injury for Jordan Love and the Packers.
Yeah, and that's particularly, it's obviously huge because Jordan Love, newly minted, got the giant contract, was supposed to be their quarterback, goes down, so you're dealing with somebody else for a while. It's better than it could have been. A lot of people were speculating right after it happened, that's a season ender, that's a knee, that's an ACL popping, that's him done. It's not that, but he's down for a few weeks, and their backup is Malik Willis, which they voluntarily went and did. Like, remember, they brought him in recently. So they're in this weird situation where pretty much everybody is fairly convinced that Malik Willis has no business starting football games anymore, and the Packers almost just deliberately put themselves in this position where they're going to need to put him in there unless they go and sign some veteran off the street, like, say, a Ryan Tannehill. I think that's obviously the biggest story coming out of this game. Does that essentially torpedo Green Bay's season because of the amount of time they may have to run with Malik Willis, or can they get by without it? And then you have the actual game itself where, as you said, both teams disappointed you.
They did a little bit. It was. I thought it was ugly on both sides. I thought, the Eagles came out winning. Look, I thought the Saquon Barkley thing we talked about all offseason. I think him potentially having a career year in Philadelphia, in part because of the offensive line, having all those receivers to worry about, having a Jalen Hurts next to him in the backfield. So you saw some of that from Saquon Barkley, some big plays. I thought the wheel route touchdown was fantastic for him. And the Eagles they scored 34 points. And you have Jalen Hurts with a terrible red zone interception, a bad interception coming out of his own end zone to start the game. He got away with a couple other turnover-worthy plays that just didn't affect. They didn't lose the ball. There weren't actual turnovers. So I think on that end, you might be positive for the Eagles, but I thought you also had some of the same coverage busts over the middle of the field, covering deep over routes, similar stuff that you had last year for Philadelphia. Of course, the field and the footing and being in South America, I don't know how much that also affects things. But I think there are concerns for both teams. It was kind of a sloppy game, I would say.
Yeah, I just went to find out what the final tally was in terms of turnover-worthy plays for both those quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts, over on PFF Plus Premium Stats, Jalen Hurts had 4 turnover-worthy plays, and Jordan Love had 2 of them in that game. So the 2 quarterbacks combined for 6 turnover-worthy plays, which was basically how the game felt. Like, you've got 2 quarterbacks who we know are capable of Pro Bowl caliber play, all-pro caliber play potentially at their best, and they're conspiring to throw a ton of turnover-worthy plays, and I think that just makes the game feel sloppier, even when they're not necessarily getting punished for them. Like, half of those ended up being interceptions, but it just felt like, for whatever good they're doing, They're just firing the ball into harm's way constantly.
The Jordan Love, there was one from Jordan Love in the flat that I mentioned on the Thursday show. Nakobe Dean reads it in the flat. It was just thrown late to the flat. Nakobe Dean hits him in the hands. Would have been a walk-in pick six. 2 plays later, Packers go 70 yards, busted coverage to Jaden Reed. So again, from like a Philadelphia Eagles perspective, maybe we should be more impressed, right? They are literally just, hey, catch the ball and run straight from a Nakobe Dean from having that was essentially a 12 or 13 point swing there.
Right.
And maybe they win by 2 touchdowns if that pass is just caught. So maybe from the Eagles' perspective, you're a little bit more positive. From the Packers' perspective, I think defensively, even with a new system, Jeff Hafley coming in, you had some, run game issues, gap control issues, similar stuff as last year when their defensive coordinator, Joe Barry, was run out of town.
Yeah, I mean, I texted you this, right? I hadn't seen the replay of Saquon Barkley's first touchdown until like way after the fact. I assumed that Quay Walker, the linebacker, had been taken out at the second level by one of the guards, that they'd got to him and they just bulldozed him out of the way, which itself, by the way, wouldn't have been great, if he'd just been wrecked by one of the guards at the second level and driven out of his gap. But he just like attacked the gap and fell over, like out of the gap. It's unbelievably terrible play. So you've got this guy who's a former first-round pick, and linebacker, I think, generally at the moment is a difficult position to identify, like who's the best guy in a given draft class, where do you take him, etc. But Quay Walker was a sort of surprise first-rounder, where the tape didn't say he was a first-round player. The athleticism said he was a first-round player. The Packers sort of surprised people by taking him 22 overall, making him the first linebacker.
Didn't surprise one person.
Well, yeah, but like only on the eve of, you know what I mean? Nobody saw it coming like a week before the draft. People started seeing it coming shortly before the draft.
Certain people threw money down on Quay being a first rounder.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is that became, that was a knowledge-based thing as opposed to an evaluation-based thing. Anyway, my point being, Quay Walker consistently proves that he's problematic when it comes to defense. And as much as we're like, hey, linebacker is becoming diminished in importance, it's still a really important player if the guy's terrible, because now he's not where he's supposed to be. He's blowing gaps. He's missing one-on-one assignments. Like, if you have a bad linebacker, it's a really important position. And Green Bay certainly has one guy that's showing up as a consistent problem, and there were other players in this game that were issues as well.
Just to wrap things up here from an Eagles perspective, A.J. Brown showing off what he's capable of doing with a 67-yard touchdown. Devontae Smith, more of a slot receiver in this offense, getting 7 catches on 8 targets. He was very efficient. You have Dallas Goedert. You have a lot of playmakers in Philadelphia. I think I'm less down on them looking back on it than I was instantly on Friday night when we reacted. But Jalen Hurts has to play a little bit cleaner for them to maximize their potential.
And by the way, I think the Packers have a clear potential pathway to linebacker upgrades in Edgerrin Cooper, the rookie, who played really well. Okay, on
highest PFF grade
on 11
for
snaps.
all defensive rookies, Edgerrin Cooper
on 11 snaps. So he looked really good on 11 snaps. But he was a guy who was sort of set back. He got injured, I think, in training camp, missed a lot of time. I think they wanted to have him on the field much earlier. They had to kind of delay it. They're easing him back in, but that guy looks like he should be on the field as a starter ASAP.
You good with Friday night?
Done with it. Out of here.
Let's get into the weeds now. Yesterday, Sunday, we got the whole slate of action, starting with our 1 o'clock games. We're going to try to go somewhat chronologically, okay?
Let's go.
Pittsburgh Steelers 18, Atlanta Falcons 10. Steelers move to 1-0 on the season.
1-0.
Falcons fall to 0-1. Impressive win for the Steelers. Justin Fields gets the start for Pittsburgh. Goes 17 of 23 for 156. Adds 57 yards on the ground on 14 carries. I thought it was a pretty good game plan for Justin Fields, the way Arthur Smith used him. Steelers kicked 6 field goals, no touchdowns.
And Chris Boswell was punting. What a game.
Unbelievable. Legendary. Are we giving him our
special
game
team
ball
of the week?
We have some, what do we call it, like special acknowledgments or whatever at the end of the show here. So Steelers 18-10. And we're going to say nice things about TJ Watt today, too. It's a whole new era.
Really? Honestly. So, okay, number one, the Steelers were one of 2 teams yesterday to win a game without scoring an offensive touchdown. But I mean, so that would sort of lead you to saying, oh, well, Justin Fields was terrible. That didn't work out. Big opportunity for Fields. Russell Wilson being hurt in training camp opened up some opportunity for him preseason. I don't know that he did anything in preseason that would make you sort of change. I think he had a door open for him in preseason that he could have maybe claimed that job if he'd been out of this world. He wasn't really. So status quo was maintained. It's like Russ is still QB1, and then he gets, was it a calf injury, something he was dealing with? He thought he was good to go, and the doctors are like, maybe not.
I mean, look,
Russ
was coaching through it yesterday, though.
He was. Now, there's a tweet that went viral that was like, this is the most Russell Wilson thing ever. He's inactive for the game, but he's here in shoulder pads in the sideline. He was, though, their emergency quarterback, I think. So there was a situation where Russell Wilson could have had to go into the game, even though he's not really supposed to go. You know what I mean? He's not active, but he could have actually played. So it's not full John Terry celebrating the Champions League in full kit, even though he wasn't playing in the game. It isn't that bad.
It isn't that bad.
And to be clear, Russell Wilson's absolutely capable of that kind of thing, but this was not that. So just some, let's actually defend Russ for once. That wasn't as egregious as it looked. Anyway, the point being, door open again for Justin Fields. I do think he actually had a pretty good game in this one. And okay, the offensive output didn't necessarily indicate that, but he was really good. And then TJ Watt was phenomenal. So he's going to end up with an absurd PFF grade. He got multiple sacks, and I think at least 2 of his best plays didn't count because they were nullified by penalty. One of which was his own penalty, but it was like the penalty in question was he timed the snap perfectly. So perfectly. You know the way in athletics you have a reaction time that if you go before that, it's a false start, even though technically you were after the gun. It's just that they determined you can't have actually reacted in that time, therefore it's a false start. Watt did that, right? He jumped the snap so perfectly that they call a flag on it because they're like, you had to have guessed. You didn't actually see it happening. You just guessed and you timed it perfectly. It looked really bad. But that play, he had a trifecta, right? The sack, forced fumble, fumble recovery. There was another one where he had was it a sack and a forced fumble or just a sack? He is genuinely a ball magnet. It's crazy. I've never seen any other defender with the ability to maximize. Every time he wins, he's turning it into like, not just are you going to hit the quarterback, but like, are you going to get the entirety? Are you going to get the sack, the forced fumble, and the recovery all by yourself every time you win?
So he had a real fumble recovery that counted when there was just an early snap.
Yes, which was an amazing play, by the way.
Yeah, dives on the ball to get the fumble recovery. And look, we're consistent, man. If people complained about us talking about almost plays and plays that don't count, we always count those plays. So, yeah. TJ Watt deserves credit. I think he perfectly jumped that snap for what should have been a strip sack.
You remember the Cam Newton Super Bowl not diving on it fumble?
Yeah.
His fumble recovery was the exact opposite of that. Yeah.
Went and got it when he
shouldn't have had any reasonable chance of getting that ball and launched himself at it and beat multiple Falcons players to the football.
And then last play of the game, he beats Caleb McGarry for a sack. What I don't understand, because it felt like throughout the game, the Falcons knew, hey, TJ Watt's going to be on this side. Yeah. Caleb McGarry's a big 6'8" offensive tackle who's not the swiftest in pass protection, more of a run-blocking baller type. And it was like McGarry had like a dual read, like he's checking the defensive tackle and then kicking out late to go get TJ Watt with the game on the line. Like that part I didn't credit to TJ Watt. I didn't understand that from the Falcons. What this highlighted to me, though, Sam, Kirk Cousins struggled, looked rusty, but also we brought up the point throughout the offseason, the Falcons were one of the higher graded offensive lines in the league over the last couple of years. And we know the grading system. We know where the advantages might lie for the offenses. And the Arthur Smith offense that's run heavy and play action heavy will protect your offensive line grading a little bit when it comes to PFF. And my concern was, on paper, I don't know if this is a great pass blocking offensive line. I don't know. Like Caleb McGarry's graded well and played better these last couple of years, but I don't generally trust him one-on-one with TJ Watts of the world, and that showed up here in week 1.
Well, so the Falcons have, I think, 2 very good players on that offensive line in Jake Matthews at left tackle and Chris Lindstrom at guard, and then 3 players that you don't think are that great but have been grading really well over the last few years in that specific system where they've been the most run-heavy team in the NFL. All 3 of those guys look like they got their ass handed to them by the Steelers.
Yeah.
So if that's the new reality for the Falcons, this offense will not be as good as we thought it was.
And then on
those guys have, that's going to happen every week.
And on the other hand, when TJ Watt's out there and healthy and Alex Highsmith is on the other side, Cameron Hayward just re-signed for the next couple of years with Pittsburgh this week. And he's coming off of his worst year, but he looked better. And Keanu Benton on the interior. So we also might be talking about one of the better defensive fronts. But so credit the Steelers defense. Their pass rush was fierce. They're going to have one of the, they were in Cousins' face all the time. And that was what was forcing, errant throws, fumbles, whether they counted or not, terrible interception by Cousins. And then generally just the Falcons, their issues on the pass protecting, they couldn't get much going offensively.
Yeah, Cody Horn in the chat sums it up well for TJ Watt. He forced 3 fumbles in that game. It's just that there were penalties that took away 2 of them.
Yeah.
That was one of the most impactful games you're ever going to see from a defensive lineman. He was phenomenal. He was murdering Caleb McGarry at right tackle. Just an incredible game by him. The thing for Kirk Cousins that stood out to me, he had 2 really terrible plays. They both came late in the play where it's like, I wonder if that's a product. I know it's effectively the same offense that he's, Kevin O'Connell's offense in Minnesota, Zach Robinson's offense. It all comes from McVay. There can't be that much difference between the 2 of them. Yeah. But the differences that there might be probably extend to the point of late in the down where you're trying to quickly figure out where your outlet is, or where I should be going on this play when it's all breaking down. That's the kind of thing where I think familiarity has an impact, right? If you've been in an offense for a while, you have that intuitive, built-in, instinctive understanding of where your outlet is, and late in the play, I know where to turn. And Cousins was really good at that late in his career in Minnesota. Late in the play was when he was making a lot of his best throws. This was he's not quite there yet. He doesn't quite understand. He doesn't quite have that. It's not muscle memory at the moment. And so he went back to being, this looked like Kirk Cousins early in his career, where you're like, whew, there's some good in there, but there's a lot of rough. I don't know if he just needs a little bit of time to settle in, but those were the plays where I felt that was an issue. We're not familiar enough with this particular variety yet.
On the other side, I want to highlight the Steelers' offense. As you said, they didn't score a touchdown. They had 6 field goals, but I thought Arthur Smith called a very Justin Fields-friendly game. If you were designing a game for Justin Fields, you had 50% play action. You had some deep shots to George Pickens. The deep shot before the half, they roll Fields out to the left and throw back across the field to Pickens for a big gain that put them into position for a field goal before the half. That was a great play. They had about 10 or 11 designed runs for Justin Fields. There's some QB sneaks in there. There was a drop snap that counted as a run, but they had some design runs in there. Najee Harris, I thought, ran really hard on his 20-plus carries. 20 carries, I think it was. So it was kind of a good complementary game plan, I thought, for the Steelers. And we've seen Fields. It's not like we've never seen Justin Fields play a good game before.
Right.
He's played a lot of good games. It's not like, Zach Wilson has literally played 3 good games, and you kind of know, those have been anomalies to this point. Fields has had more than those, right? So it's oversimplifying to be like, they got him. He's going to be the second highest PFF graded passer this week. Fields has turned a corner. But I would say maybe he's a better fit. Maybe he's a better fit than Russ at this point. My week 1 overreaction, Justin Fields, the starter going forward. Keep Russ over there on the sideline, cheering it up.
It's certainly, I do think that we've been talking about, is there a chance that Justin Fields can take the job away from Russell Wilson, and how quickly can it happen? This was the type of game. This moved him closer to that. The door has been cracked open again because of injury for Justin Fields to have an opportunity to impress and to get himself closer to that starting job. He did. like the score or the offensive output or, the touchdowns, et cetera, wouldn't necessarily indicate that. But overall performance, this game moved Justin Fields closer to that starting job than before.
Anything else on this?
What else do I got on this game? So it's difficult to tell because, Kirk Cousins, we just talked, doesn't feel like he's completely at home in this system yet. Who knows what the injury is doing
There's
to recovery.
rust, there's Achilles. I mean, there's a few factors there.
Then you've got the offensive line that we talked about. Caleb McGarry just getting absolutely destroyed by TJ Watt. I do kind of want, if you looked at the box score for this game, particularly the receiving one, it looks like Arthur Smith coached the game, right? We're back to where are all these receivers again? Where is the output for Kyle Pitts and Drake London, all these guys that we think are amazing? I wonder at what point it's going to be a little bit like Denver's receiving core from a couple of years ago, where you put Aaron Rodgers in this team, and these guys are all going to go to the moon. We're going to be talking about the best receiving core in the NFL. I do wonder, at what point we just reassess that and go, maybe they're just not as good as we thought they were. Maybe Drake London is more of a limited receiver who's amazing at the catch point, and maybe Kyle Pitts, for all of his insane athleticism, isn't actually this revolutionary tight end that's going to change the game. And when you sort of
Pitts maybe.
When you level set in those guys, then you're back to okay, Ray McLeod is one of their top receivers, and this just isn't that great a receiving core.
Pitts maybe. I think Drake London's still really good. I think this was, Kirk had 26 passing attempts, sacked a couple times. They didn't get into a groove. They tried to run the ball. Were they calling him Bijan, by the way?
Certainly somebody was, yeah.
Have I been wrong all these years? Calling him Bijan?
I don't know.
They tried to get Bijan involved. They were also, Zach was designing a lot of Bijan in the pass game type of stuff. That was, they're getting the ball in his hands. That was well done. I think it was just a game flow thing. I mean, I'd be more concerned about Pitts if you're in fantasy land,
I was trying to get a perfect photograph.
Who just scored a touchdown.
I know.
But this is just classic fantasy. So late in the down, Kyle Pitts is wide open. It's, finally they're feeding Pitts. It's no,
They had a replay of that touchdown from behind Kyle Pitts. So you sort of saw this perfect, Pitts in the foreground. In the background is Kirk Cousins, rolling or running his way back to throw the ball. I was trying to get this perfect picture because literally Pitts is in the end zone alone, waving like this for Kirk Cousins. I was trying to get this sort of perfect shot where he's waving for it, and Cousins is just about to throw it in the background, but it didn't quite overlap. Sad. It was a perfect photograph that went begging.
Was there anything else on this game?
No, I think that's it.
No, I think I'm good. I got no more use for this game.
Done.
Jacksonville Jaguars at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins make the comeback to win 20-17 with a walk-off field goal. I would say from Miami's perspective in week one, kind of survived, right? They, slow start. They survive and they get the win. And from the Jags' perspective, this was a microcosm of their 2023 season when they started 8-3 and didn't make the playoffs. They were battling for the number one seed into the second half of the year and then don't make the playoffs. They were up 17-7 in this game. And while it was 17-7, or while it was 14-7, at some point,
17-7.
It was 17-7, and Travis Etienne bust a big run, a rare big efficient run for the Jags. They had a couple yesterday, and then fumble on the way to the end zone.
Javon Holland with a perfect peanut punch to get the ball out. Yeah, what a swing that was, right? So
I don't want to sound excusey if you're the if you're a Jags or a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
Okay. We spend all offseason, we're breaking it all down, right? We've got the QB and the O-line and how are the receivers, what they do with the defense, how's the pass rush, and I say this every year. And then week one comes down to the literal difference in the Jags being 1-0 or 0-1. Same with the Bengals, as bad as Cincinnati, we'll talk about them in a minute, as bad as they played offensively. We're literally talking about they're about to score a touchdown and they fumble at the 2 or the 1, and it completely changes the outcome of the game. So you credit the Dolphins for making the play, you credit the Patriots for making that play. But that's the literal difference in this game.
I'm just always I never cease to be fascinated by the swings that individual plays can have within football games. American football is so rare as a sport because one individual play can completely change the dynamic. Now, other sports have this as well, but no like no LeBron dunk or miss is going to change the outcome like wildly of a game that's like the Lakers are dominating, then LeBron gets blocked or whatever, and now, it's a totally different game. Like this, the Jags are up 17-7. They've got a 10-point lead. Etienne is about to score, put another touchdown on the board. Instead, Holland forces the fumble. Miami get the turnover. And on that drive, they then get a Tyreek Hill deep over, then he outruns two defenders, takes it to the house. That's a 14-point swing. That's the difference between the Jags like running away and stomping Miami, and we're like, oh, what a disaster for the Dolphins, and the Dolphins ending up like winning this with a 52-yard field goal to snatch it back, and whew, like breathe, exhale, we got it, we got away with it, right? But that play is literally the difference between those two things happening, and it's a wild swing in outcome based off not just like one play that's big, but like the peanut punch, forcing the ball out with a shot to the football by Holland is the difference between not just a win or a loss, but like probably a fairly conclusive win from Jacksonville and a loss.
I mean, this happened last year with, remember, Antoine Winfield at the goal line saved a game against the Falcons.
Two of them.
Yeah, it happened twice, and that ended up leading the Bucs to winning the NFC South, going to the playoffs, winning a game, re-signing Baker Mayfield. Like it is unbelievable sometimes the impact that one or two plays can have.
The butterfly effect.
Yes. So I thought the old tale of two halves or whatever. That happened. That Etienne play happened. Q3, 2:27 left. We're talking about 17 and change left in the game when the Jags were ready to go up 24-7. But then after that point, the Jags, from their perspective, had a lot of the same stuff that popped up last year. 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, they come up short a couple different times. At one point, it was in their own territory. It didn't cost them technically because Miami missed a field goal, but the Jags were 0 for 2 in the second half on 3rd and 4th and 1. The Dolphins, on the other hand, hit 2 or converted 2 for 2 on 3rd and 4th and 1s using fullback. And I thought the Jags did a really nice job slowing down the Dolphins in the first half. They're playing a lot of press man and feisty man coverage against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and that explosive passing attack. And then when the Dolphins started coming back late first half, they made a few plays, and then into the second half, their playmakers just took over, right? There's only so long that I think you can man up against Tyreek Hill and Waddle in that group. And so Tyreek Hill breaks free on that 80-yarder. There's a couple big screens in there from Achane. And I thought that's what makes the Dolphins so difficult, right? I mean, you can play so many good plays, play after play after play, but they can just create explosives. Tua started making some big-time throws, some really good throws. I don't even think the coverage was that different in the second half, but he's hitting a deep out, a deep curl, the bomb to Tyreek Hill. The Dolphins, their playmakers just showed up in the second half.
Yeah, no, they did. The Tyreek Hill touchdown in particular, like that, he might be the only player in the NFL that makes that play. Like he outruns. It's a deep over that should have ended pretty much at the end of the deep over.
Should be like a 20, 25-yard gain.
Yeah, and instead he somehow turns that corner, runs the sideline, steps out of a tackle, and takes it in the end zone.
Still faster than everybody.
Faster and stronger, and just he's so much better, I think, than you immediately assume. And it's only when plays like that happen, you're like, he's just so hard to tackle. By the way, this is also coming after the craziness of him trying to get to the stadium.
Why did he get arrested? I'm over here just minding my own business at church. May have glanced at the Twitter machine.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Tyreek Hill got arrested.
Right. Well, it sounds like a sort of Scotty Scheffler incident in terms of there was some form of traffic violation, right? But then, as seems to happen in this country sometimes, it got out of control quite quickly when the popo got involved. When the cops showed up, somehow Tyreek Hill is now in cuffs and being led away. It was funny. They had Drew Rosenhaus on the broadcast like just before the game explaining his take, Drew Rosenhaus being Tyreek Hill's agent. And at one point, I think it was Jeff Darlington, asked him, I heard a couple of Dolphins teammates went over and tried to help him out and blah, blah. Like, what do you think? And Rosenhaus was like, well, I don't want to bring other people into it, but Calais Campbell and Jonnu Smith did a fantastic thing going over and trying to help out. Like, okay. Calais Campbell apparently was also cuffed, and like he tried to de-escalate this because apparently, from his viewpoint, it looked like the cop was like wildly overreacting to all this, and Tyreek Hill is like on the pavement in cuffs. Calais Campbell tries to de-escalate this, winds up in cuffs himself and being charged for disobeying a direct order or something by the cop. I don't remember whether Jonnu Smith ended up in cuffs as well, but the whole thing seemed to get wildly out of control. That cop apparently has already been placed on administrative leave while they investigate what the story is. Anyway,
I never
was the
circled back and
backdrop.
got the whole story because I was, watching football all day
Right,
yesterday.
but that was the backdrop to Tyreek Hill then going off and having a big game.
So we have some questions in the chat about Brian Thomas Jr. and his debut. And so I want to talk about the Jags.
By the way, that's right. Yahtzee in the chat points out that Jeff Darlington was the same reporter that was live for the Scotty Scheffler day.
I mean, when this all happened, of course, the reaction from the public is going to be different when Scotty Scheffler gets arrested
versus Tyreek
Hill. Because when Scotty did, it was like, what's happening when Tyreek Hill?
What could this clean-cut man possibly have done to incur the wrath of the cops?
When it was Tyreek, well, of course he did.
Right.
I mean, what else is he going to do in week one besides get arrested on the way to the stadium?
Yeah.
And then Scotty goes out and shoots 5 under that day, and Tyreek Hill goes out and looks like Tyreek Hill with 7 catches for $130 and a touchdown. So we're all good now. But Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both go over 100 yards. There was a lot of the dink and dunk and underneath and screen game for the Dolphins, but they hit those big plays when needed, and you end up with Tua going 23 of 37 for 338. You're over 9 yards per attempt because that's what they do. Ends up being a pretty good game for him.
I thought Jalen Phillips looked good coming back off his significant injury. That's big for the Dolphins. They really need at least one high-end pass rusher on the edge, and he looks like he might be the guy. He gave Anton Harrison some real problems. Also, Brian Thomas Jr. had a nice game. Now, the Dolphins put out Jalen Ramsey on a pitch count with a hamstring and immediately gets toasted deep by Brian Thomas Jr., underthrown pass. It ends up getting broken up. It was a pass interference play by Jalen Ramsey. Brian Thomas, I really liked it. Brian Thomas gets up and is immediately trash-talking Jalen Ramsey after that play. That's pretty, I like that. As a first-round rookie, you burn Jalen Ramsey and then let him know after he interferes at the catch point. That's some high-end confidence for the rookie. I like that. Brian Thomas Jr. had a really nice game as well. He obviously had the touchdown. The touchdown was a nice catch. Wow, was it a good throw?
It was a ridiculous throw.
At the point where he throws that ball, it looks crazy to attempt that pass. There's 2 Dolphins with their eyes on the quarterback in the end zone, looking in that general direction, and he decides he can fit it in over their heads and drop it into Brian Thomas, who's coming in over the top behind them, and actually nails it, perfectly positioned.
I didn't realize how good it was till I saw it on the wide
angle. It's a crazy pass.
It is. Trevor Lawrence was so much better in the first half than the second half. I thought in Brian Thomas Jr. created some of those big plays, which was great. The touchdown, the defensive pass interference. We talked a lot in the offseason about the verticality of this offense, the ability to stretch the field. That was what we saw. Trevor Lawrence's average depth of target was 10.9. That would have been his second highest last season. So I think the Jags are doing what they wanted to do, right? They had Christian Kirk on a corner route open that he dropped. He had Trevor Lawrence hit Kirk on a seam. He had that beauty of a touchdown to Brian Thomas in the back of the end zone. And then toward the end of the game, they're just off. The offense is just off again. I don't know. I think Miami started to speed Lawrence up a little bit, and they didn't have great answers. They didn't have many quick game answers. It was almost like they were too big play hunting early on, and they did not get into a groove with anything underneath. And then in the fourth quarter, you have a tie game, and I don't know. I always put Trevor Lawrence to this go make a comeback standard. I've always kind of held him to this standard because I assumed some Andrew Luck to him, where Luck could maybe not play the cleanest game, but he was going to go make plays in crunch time. Luck is one of the best in recent history of making comebacks, and Lawrence for a stretch showed some of that. But now you've got your game-winning drive opportunity against the Dolphins in the fourth quarter, and they go run for no gain, sack. And the first sack, it's 2nd and 10. And, we always talk about, the Bradys and the Mannings and Mahomes, just go get a completion in your comeback attempt. Lawrence has the little quick hitch outside. Go hit the little 5-yarder, get to 3rd and 5, and he runs into a sack.
Yeah. There's also enough inconsistency about his game that if you're going to be really good, you kind of need that Andrew Luck stuff, right? Otherwise, you're just a middling quarterback. Like if you're going to be an amazing $55 million a year quarterback, like you make enough mistakes that at some point I'm going to need you to turn it on and become Andrew Luck. And even if you're putting out the fire that you started, I can live with that as long as you put it out and we win the game.
Here's my thing with Lawrence. Like, not to oversimplify, but let's just do that here on a Monday morning.
Sure, it's overreaction week.
Do the mundane, do the quote unquote easy stuff. We'll talk about Caleb Williams later. Like Caleb Williams missed a whole bunch of easy throws yesterday. Trevor Lawrence needs to hit those. And the things that we always look at Pat Mahomes and say, hey, yeah, Mahomes, of course he's got the highlight reel plays. Of course he's going to run around and he's got these great plays. And the highlight reel is as good as anyone's. But he hits the little 5-yard hitch. He hits the easy stuff when it's there, and he takes it when it's there. He hits the open receiver when it's there, and at the end of the day, it adds up, and that's what makes the great ones great. And I honestly, I feel like we're lacking some of that just across the NFL right now. So I don't know. That was my part of my takeaway of why it maybe fell apart here for the Jags. And then they've got run blocking issues, the same ones as last year. Miami's run defense did a nice job. There was a couple big runs in there. Tank Bigsby had some nice runs, but when in those gotta have it plays, the Jags still seem like they're lacking a little bit, either from winning one-on-ones or scheme.
I mean, I think that's just part of the dynamic with that offensive line. It's a better pass blocking unit than it is run blocking unit, and sometimes you're not going to have the run blocking there. The bigger concern is that the pass blocking didn't necessarily hold up the way you would want it to. Like for that to be an acceptable dynamic, hey, we're not going to be good run blocking, but it's okay because we're really good pass blocking. That ceases to become okay when you're not really good pass blocking, and in critical downs, you're losing to the pressure. I just wanted a quick word on Brian Thomas Jr. before we get out of this game. I was impressed by some of the route running nuance that he had in this game. Like obviously, so the early play against Jalen Ramsey, right? Again, it fits into the expected category of what he's supposed to be good at. Vertical release, uses his speed, toasts a guy who's running with a hamstring. So that kind of makes sense, right? That would be in the expected bucket of what Brian Thomas should be good at as a rookie. There was another play, though, later where he was just running like a 15-yard curl or whatever, or a hook, I forget which. But the top of that route was really nice because he does a shimmy outside, a little shoulder fake, makes the corner turn his hips the wrong way, then hooks up back inside. That's the kind of thing that, okay, you're really fast and big, but that bought you an extra yard or two of separation. Like those are important plays if you're going to be this well-rounded number one receiver. So, the touchdown will be the thing that gets everybody after week one, taking victory laps. But I think actually the way more important play is that type of thing. Showing some of that route running nuance is a really encouraging sign for Brian Thomas.
Week one overreaction, Chris Sims was right.
Chris Sims was right. Yeah, well, Brian Thomas Jr. touchdown, Marvin Harrison Jr. anonymous. Ergo, nailed it.
That's it. That's true. It happened. Dolphins 20. Jags 17. I had one more shout out, I think, in here. Oh, Austin Jackson.
Yeah.
Dolphins right tackle. Smushing people. Smushing people in the run game.
Great word.
Wanted to give him a shout out. Anytime I could give a shout out to some offensive linemen, got to do it. I feel like I could talk about this game for a while, but we got a full show to do here. So now I have no more use for this game.
No more.
I think next is New England Patriots.
Oh, boy.
At Cincinnati Bengals. Patriots 16, Bengals 10. Harry was right. I was getting a lot of Harry was right comments.
What if
this spread kept going higher and higher? Now, I don't know how he did this week, but he nailed this one.
What Patriots if he's just a savant and we need to pass the torch to Harry already?
My day watching the game, I feel bad because I'm always like, oh, Harry, I got to concentrate. The whole day is him looking at me be like, Dad, why would you pick this game? Why would you pick the Bengals? I told you. Why would you pick Washington? I told you. Even when he doesn't tell me when he's wrong, but he reminds me when he's right.
Yeah.
So New England 16-10. From a New England perspective, I was more impressed than I thought. I mean, I had such low expectations for them this year.
Yeah.
And look, they put up 16 points. But run game, they used a sixth offensive lineman 18 times. No one else in the league had more than 6.
Well, that's one way of offsetting a bad offensive line, to just run with 6 of them.
Yes, 6 offensive linemen. So that Caden Wallace, the rookie tackle out of Penn State, 18 snaps, all at tight end. And then from Cincinnati's perspective, I just want to talk about that really quick. Joe Burrow finishes 21 of 29 for 164. That's 5.7 yards per attempt. They also had the same thing that happened in the Jags game, right? You had Drew Sample. It was Sample, right?
Gesicki had the touchdown taken away, and then Tanner
Hudson. I'm sorry.
Fumbled it away.
So the Gesicki one was Joe Burrow's best throw of the game.
Right.
And I thought that was going to be a touchdown, but you're that close from scoring a touchdown. Doesn't mean they would have won, but it would have changed the flow of this game.
Well, it was more the next play. Like they had the touchdown on the board, then had it taken away on replay. I didn't see the replay. I assume it was legit, but whatever. Really close to a touchdown. The next play, was it the very next play?
Yes.
They fire like a slant over the middle to Tanner Hudson. He's going in for a touchdown. And the same thing, like the ball gets ripped out of his arms and it's a turnover. And again, it's that massive swing. Like this game for a while, a lot of the times when you get these crazy games where the spread is massive in one direction and the other team is winning, right, early, there's the inevitable feeling that, okay, yeah, this isn't going as we expected, but sooner or later the better team will get ahead and then go away, right? Like this, Arizona was like that. Like they got up early against Buffalo, but eventually the Bills get parity, then get ahead, and you're like, okay, normal service has been resumed. This was the chance for Cincinnati to sort of establish normal service, and instead they fumbled away that opportunity and they never got it back again.
And they were talking to Zach Taylor, head coach of the Bengals, at halftime, and they're like, what's wrong with the offense? He's like, well, we had three 3-and-outs, but we just put together a really nice drive and fumbled at the goal line, right? So you're starting to feel the flow as the Bengals offense, and they started to put drives together a little bit better after that. But obviously that was a massive play. Kyle Duggar knocks it out. Marcus Jones picks it up. That was a great play. From a New England perspective, they deserve credit defensively, the way they played. From a Cincinnati perspective, though, I don't understand what happens in the first couple weeks of the season with the Bengals. Last year at this time, they had lost like 27-3 or whatever it was to the Browns. And it was like, all right, Joe Burrow, he didn't play at all in training camp. He was rusty.
Right.
Didn't play in training camp. He had the calf injury. This makes sense. They were dinking and dunking last year. Remember the beginning of the year? He was barely throwing the ball beyond the line of scrimmage. It was all,
But that was all like limited because of the calf injury. It
was a perfect calf injury excuse.
Yeah.
Last year, and then they grew out of it. It was like, as he got healthy, they started throwing the ball down the field more, and it looked like the previous 2 years for Cincinnati. And look, because they have a history of doing this, they'll probably do this in a few weeks.
Right.
But there's no excuse this year for why, other than T. Higgins not playing.
And Jamar Chase having been his contract holdout, then he was sick apparently, allegedly, whatever. He hasn't been there for the entirety of this whole thing. It's again, every single year there appears to be plausible and reasonable excuses for the slow start, but they do keep having the slow starts. I want to put a question to you. We were speculating all offseason. Bill Belichick is gone. Gerard Mayo comes in, new coach, new regime, new whole dynamic in the building in New England. But one of the most interesting aspects of that to me was the one thing that Belichick never lost was his teeth on defense and what his impact was on that side of the ball. And the speculation was, well, that could only go one direction, right? Absent Belichick, what if the defense falls apart? And now we're looking at this offense that's not going to score any points with Jacoby Brissett at the quarterback, with no offensive lineman you can trust to protect anybody. And what if the defense falls apart as well? Now you're talking about the number 1 overall pick and the worst team in the NFL. What if the lowest ranking Belichick is actually the best Belichick?
That's what you're bringing up here?
Look, it's Overreaction Monday. Keon White with 3 sacks. The defense shuts down Cincinnati. What if Junior Belichick is actually the best Belichick there is?
Is Brian?
Whatever.
Or Steve.
The way
Brian, right?
Being buried on a depth chart doesn't necessarily mean that you're not amazing. You just haven't had your chance yet, Kurt Warner needed a shot, and then Kurt Warner became a Hall of Famer.
Is Bill Belichick, co-worker, assistant head coach?
Well, what if he was just holding back his kid, and actually his kid is going to be version 2.0. He's going to be way better.
Could be. It could be.
These are the questions that you're inevitably led to after a performance like this.
Well, the defense played great. You mentioned Keon White and his 3 sacks. I'll highlight him as one of my guys that had a great week.
That's 2.5 technically for the NFL.
2.5 from the NFL.
Are we now duty bound to use half sacks now that we're no longer under the PFF umbrella? Because I still believe that half sacks are stupid.
We've complimented TJ Watt today.
Correct.
I'm not going to say anything. That's a joke. We've complimented TJ Watt. I will never go to the half sacks.
Good.
I am also
they're dumb and I hate them.
We didn't mention it in the Jags game, but Trayvon Walker had 2 sacks yesterday. One of which was a failed RPO where Tua slid at the line of scrimmage for a 0-yard sack where Trayvon Walker was the closest guy. I'm not doing it. We're not changing. I'm not giving in to looking at sack totals and nonsense. But Keon White played really well.
You really did.
Our guy Marcus Jones, remember he got hurt last year. He was awesome in 2022 as a rookie. He has a huge play. He had the fumble recovery, but also made a few other. He had a pass game run stop, close coverage in the end zone on Irwin when they were throwing to Irwin in the end zone. So yeah, the Patriots defense deserves a lot of credit, and they weren't great offensively, but they were controlling the flow. Ramondre Stevenson forced 10 missed tackles. It wasn't even a great.
They ran the ball 39 times, including Jacoby Brissett.
It wasn't like, hey, we're mauling people in the run game type of offense for New England. Ramondre's making it happen. They were pretty good up front. They were fine, but Ramondre was making it happen. He was excellent, keeping them on schedule, 8 first downs on the ground. Yeah. And so they just, one of those, like, you draw it up and you control the game. You run the ball and play defense.
Again, PFF stats. 4.8 yards per carry for Ramondre, 4.7 of which came after contact.
Yeah.
So Ramondre was doing work.
That's what I'm saying. It wasn't. You're not looking. I still think the Patriots have similar offensive line issues. Jacoby Brissett had a few key plays, moving the sticks and everything. It's a lackluster. Like, look, if they lost 30-16, you'd be like, it's not a great offensive performance. But they scored 16 behind this power running attack and held the ball for 34 minutes or whatever it was, and made some stops, and it was a good game.
The one thing you take, I think the Patriots are probably slightly better than people expected coming into the season, but not like this didn't fundamentally change everything about New England. I think this is still not a particularly good football team that may have a very good defense again. This was a much bigger indictment, though, of Cincinnati. I mean, that was a bad performance from the Bengals, kind of on both sides of the ball. And, okay, maybe we can put it down to just their slow starts and week 1 rust and blah, blah, blah. But they can't play like this if they want. I mean, you're a Super Bowl pick. They can't play like this if they want to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, this is the one, like, I won't overreact to because we've seen it.
Coward.
Because we've seen, since I don't know what it is. We've seen them look like this in weeks 1 and 2
maybe this is
for the last 4 years.
Maybe this is just how you should do it. They want to peak in February, not now.
Yeah. Don't want
to go off too early.
Keep guys rested during the preseason, during training camp. I mean, I saw them in training camp. They look fine.
Yeah.
They look good. They look normal. They showed up in week 1 and, like, we're just throwing 3-yard passes the whole time. Next Gen Stats had Jake Liskow had a tweet out there. Where the heck was it? Jake, former PFF colleague. It was like Joe Burrow's third lowest pressure game by Next Gen. They track it a little bit differently from PFF, and it's just like first round. It was pressured at his third lowest rate of his entire career, and he still only averaged 5.6 yards per attempt with no pressure. And it was that where they put out the passing chart, and it's all just like under 8 yards, short middle of the field. And a couple deep. Now, the great throw to Gesicki that should have been a touchdown. Mm-hmm. Incomplete to Irwin in the end zone. But they took those were like red zone shot plays, or like high red zone shot plays. There's the verticality that I was talking about. The Jags offense doesn't exist for Cincinnati,
which I do think.
But we'll see it in 5 weeks. It'll look great again.
But I do think that that's something teams are focusing on. Like, I think that the game plan right now to attack Cincinnati's offense is take away a vertical shot play to Jamar Chase, put a safety over the top of him, force them to play underneath, and rely on the fact that of the receiving talent that they have, there's not a whole lot that's scary in terms of with the ball in their hands in open space. Again, outside of Jamar Chase, who's the guy you're focusing on anyway. Like, are you scared if any of their players gets the ball over the middle for 5 yards? No, like, let them do it, rally, tackle. But I think teams are attacking the Bengals by taking away those vertical plays and basically saying, beat us with explosive yards after the catch plays, and the Bengals don't have that at the moment.
Oh, man. Yeah, they didn't have T. Higgins. Yosivas was the top guy. Jermaine Burton played one snap. Maybe, just run him deep every now and then. I know you don't know the rest of the playbook, but do you know a 9? Do you know a 9? Run straight. I'm going to throw it really far. Go catch it. Be faster and have better ball skills than everybody, which you do.
You've got, Jermaine Burton, maybe he doesn't know all the playbook. On the other hand, he's lining up next to Princeton. Can't crib his sheet. Like, let Princeton tell him what the play is after the huddle.
There you go.
That's the whole, this is schoolwork in a nutshell, right? Find the Ivy League guy and copy his homework. That's all you need Burton to do.
All right, we're moving on. Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. The last game to finish in the 1 o'clock window, somehow.
Really was.
Yeah, Saints 47, Panthers 10. Saints started strong and didn't stop.
Started strong, were strong in the middle, and ended strong. Yeah.
Rashid Shaheed, of course, a stud.
Just blowtorching J.C. Horn for a deep touchdown, right out of the gate. Derek Carr, by the way, incredibly good in this game. Stood tall in the pocket to deliver that pass. Like, he was under some pressure, bodies in his face, stands there, doesn't just get it there. It wasn't one of those, slightly underthrown, Shaheed's got to make the play. Stands tall in the pocket with pressure in his face and gets it all the way to Shaheed. Great play by both of them.
We've had this interesting relationship with Derek Carr as analysts through the years, where there are certain times when it's like, man, when he is aggressive, I've always paired his best play with aggressiveness because he can make special throws. That is a special throw to Rashid Shaheed. Shaheed with a special route and speed, but what a great throw by Derek Carr. Also has the touchdown to Foster Moreau where he throws it up. Like, when Carr is attacking down the field, the range of outcomes for their offense is high. Like, it could be bad too, but it's high. Like, you can put points on the board, and that's what we saw yesterday for the Saints. This was good, aggressive Derek Carr.
That touchdown to Moreau in the end zone. Moreau, by the way, is a great story as well. That guy had cancer of some variety and is now back catching touchdowns in the NFL. Like, those are always amazing stories. Foster Moreau. So that was a play. There were a couple of plays yesterday where, as it was unfolding, you're like, this is a certain turnover. This is a catastrophic play that's unfolding before my eyes, and it actually ends up being a positive, great play for the offense instead. Carr is rolling to the right. There's nothing in front of him. It was like the Brett Favre NFC Championship game. We were like, for the love of God, just run. Take the play. It's there. Carr is rolling to the right. And instead of running into the open space in front of him, where he maybe could have had a touchdown, certainly would have had a solid gain, he's directing people in the end zone. Like, no, over there, back that way. And then heaves it, lofts it back into the middle of the end zone into all the danger. And you're like, this is a terrible interception. And then Moreau just ends up, lands in his hands in the back of the end zone where only he can get it. Amazing play that just looked catastrophic from start to finish until it ended up in the hands of Foster Moreau. Everything about that play looked terrible.
That's what I'm saying. That's that aggressive, confident Derek Carr. Derek Carr was playing like Matthew Stafford yesterday. It was Matthew Stafford-esque confidence from Derek Carr. When he plays like that, they have a chance. And so coming out of the offseason, I forgot that week 1 Saints are the 72 Dolphins. I forgot about this. I forgot about this rule that in week 1, now I took the Saints because I said, look, week 1 in the Dome, right? They have these great dominant Dome games, right? That's what they do, the Saints. Forgot that they're the 72 Dolphins. They're undefeated the last few years. Remember, they won 38-3 against the eventual number 1 seed Packers in 2021. So they do have those early games. But man, when Derek Carr plays like that, and maybe the Panthers are just terrible. It's possible too.
That's certainly a valid conclusion coming out of week 1.
And I know you want to lean that way too, right? I want to give credit to the Saints.
Yeah.
I got to apologize to them a little. I want to apologize to their offensive line personally.
Oh.
Personally.
Okay.
To up and down the offensive line. dominant in the run game. Eric McCoy, unreal at center. Talise Fawanga, moving over to the left side, looking good in his debut. Even Cesar Ruiz having a good game.
Even Cesar Ruiz.
Yeah. I mean, all of my off-season concerns for the Saints. I'm not saying they're cool now after one game against the Panthers, but they all looked fine.
Yeah.
Carr was outstanding and aggressive. The O-line was great. Alvin Kamara looked like he's got that half step back. And so there was a lot to like about the Saints.
This was kind of like what they were supposed to be last year. Remember, they added Derek Carr and they're good enough to win this division fairly comfortably now because by default, if nothing else, right? And then Derek Carr struggled for the first half of the season. And I think it was long enough that everyone kind of had written off the fact that it could happen. It's like, oh, well, okay, that's not going to happen. Derek Carr's just not very good anymore. And then by the time he actually started playing well, everyone had already written him off, and the Saints were in trouble, and it's like, it doesn't count. But we did ask the question a few times in the offseason, like, what happens if Derek Carr picks up where he left off, and actually it just took him half a year to adjust? That, so far, has been what happened, and if that happens, the Saints are a good team and absolutely a playoff threat. Shout out to Liam Reynolds in the chat, who quoted me saying stood tall in the pocket as taking digs at Bryce Young already.
Who didn't stand tall in the pocket is the guy on the other side.
So I think there's definitely a reality where Derek Carr is back to being as good as he normally is, and the Saints are genuinely pretty good when that happens. But it is the inevitable context is the Panthers look terrible. I mean, this was the worst team in the NFL last season, looking like they're the worst team in the NFL again. Year 2 of Bryce Young. Everything's better. It's time to get excited about Bryce Young again. Dave Canales has been talking about it. He's got his confidence back. He's got his swagger. Well, that resulted in an immediate catastrophic interception where he just heaved it blindly over the middle to a defender. Okay, after all the excitement, that's a very bad start. And then late in the game, same kind of thing, right? He's adjusting in the pocket, runs up, no kind of footwork, just lofts the ball, air mails it by 5 yards right to a defender again. Year 2 of Bryce Young looked very similar to year 1 of Bryce Young, which is to say awful. Jonathan Mingo, gets an end around, fumbles the ball away, and all of the things that we wanted to be better this year looked exactly the same. They've got no defense now because they let Brian Burns go away, and now they've got one good defender. Frankie Louvu's no longer there. The defense might be worse, and the offense didn't look any better than a year ago. The Panthers might suck again.
The funny thing is, not even funny, but yeah, the first Bryce Young interception, which was didn't see it well over the middle.
It looked like a caricature of what can go wrong if you have a 5'10" quarterback.
So then the other part of this was we spent all last year saying, well, the situation. Well, the pass blocking. Well, nobody's getting open. Yesterday, if you're just looking at the offensive line,
it was fine.
They were pretty good. Ike Ekwonu had some issues. Bryce Young was sacked 3 times, all by Alontae Taylor, your nickel corner.
Yep.
And 2 were unblocked.
One of those as well was, I think, a really concerning play. It was 3rd and 11. And New Orleans crowded the line of scrimmage. They sort of gave you that Vikings look where they got a ton of guys up. You got to figure out who's coming, who's not. Bryce Young looked like he checked out of a play, changed something, reset, changed protection, whatever, adjusted something at the line, which resulted in a play that had 0 hot options and an unblocked rusher coming right at him for a sack, right? Okay, if he's got checking to something from that look is fine, right?
Yeah.
This is a weird look. It looks like there's some kind of pressure coming. I'm going to change a play so I've got an answer. To change it and then have a play that looked like it had no answer to anything is a real problem because either he doesn't have the ability to change the actual play that's being run and only adjusted the protection incorrectly, or he changed to something that had no answer to what was obviously a pressure look in the first place. Either way, that looks like a very bad indictment to Bryce Young's mental ability. Forget he's 5'10" and can't see over the line of scrimmage. This was he didn't know what was happening on the play and resulted in a sack that a normal quarterback should have had an answer to. That's an even bigger worry than he looks really small on the field and he's undersized. That was an indication that independent of his physical limitations, he might be behind the game mentally as well, and that's a real problem.
So, yeah, that was concerning. Again, the Saints have these dominant dome type of games. I don't know if that – see what happens.
I mean,
going forward.
One
of my biggest things week 1 to 2 is like sometimes the team that's home looks way better than they are, and the team on the road looks – so, I mean, we'll give it another week, but –
Well, this is the classic, like, let's, understanding that this was an absolute beatdown. You couldn't come out of this game more split on, the Saints looked amazing, the Panthers looked terrible. This is the classic, like, sometimes week 1 does this, right?
Yeah.
And there are games where teams win big in week 1 and end up winning 6 games in the rest of the season and are not good. There are also games where teams get absolutely smacked down in week 1 and they're still fine for the regular season. Who knows if this will be one of those cases, but there were no indications coming out of this game that the Panthers will be good or that the Saints have major problems and they need to address elsewhere. This was 30-nothing before halftime, comfortably before halftime, and the Saints, eased up. Jake Haener came in the game. Like, this was an absolute annihilation.
The Panthers' pass rush was also concerning. They had 3 registered pressures and first-run PFF analysis here. One was a sack where Carr kind of ran into things, and then the other 2 plays were completed, one of which was the 59-yard touchdown. So the Panthers' lack of a pass rush was a concern coming into the season, and it's still a concern, especially, again, I want to credit the Saints' offensive line, but that was supposed to be their weakness, right? And so is this what we called a pillow fight coming in? I don't know. But impressive performance top to bottom from the Saints. It was like Drew Brees era Saints dominance against the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on that game?
Nope.
All right. Minnesota Vikings 28, New York Giants 6. Sam Darnold, week 1, looking good. Completed his first 12 passes, Sam.
Yeah.
On his way to going 19 of 24 for 208, 2 touchdowns and a pick in there. Aaron Jones added 94 yards on the ground and a score. Daniel Jones finishes with 186 yards, 4.4 yards per attempt, and 2 picks, including a pick 6 by Andrew Van Ginkel.
Which is not the first time he's done that, by the way. Like, Van Ginkel has that play on his resume already, the one where you're
to read the screen.
Yeah, you're out there as an edge rusher, outside linebacker, and they don't do anything to take you out of the play, and you just catch the wide receiver screen and take it in.
As an early football fan, you know who was great at that? It's always good when I can go back to
the 90s Jags reference.
Yeah.
Who was good at that?
Tony Brackens.
Tony Brackens?
Tony Brackens. I'll send you a little highlight reel. I'll send you some clips.
There's got like a highlight reel of those?
I might have it saved on my computer. But boy, did he have such a good feel for those, read the screen and not just knock it down, but actually pick it off. Great play by Van Ginkel. There.
Really, yeah, it was. It was an outstanding play by him. And I'm always curious how much you criticize the quarterback for those plays, because it's one where the alignment is so far outside, you can't even cut him. A lot of the times for those quick plays, the offensive tackle cuts the defensive end, just get him out, just get him down, get his hands down. But when he's lined up that far out as an outside linebacker, you can't really, he's too far away from you to get anything on him. So do you look at that as a quarterback, you're like, I can't make this play because there's an outside linebacker in the vague general direction, or do you act, he's probably not going to catch it and house it, so let's just run the risk? I don't know.
No, because the quarterback's just catching and throwing. I don't think there's nothing.
But he also he has line of sight on what that is from a pre-snap look. He has to have a vague understanding that there's an outside linebacker in the general direction of this throw. Does that change what I'm doing here?
It's also one of those, because I'm watching again. Van Ginkel he's guessing, right?
Yeah.
If the Giants run any other play, like a normal pass that's not a screen, on a 4-man rush, Van Ginkel's taken out of the rush. He's just decided, I'm guessing screen here, or I'm anticipating screen, or whatever it might be, on a 1st and 10, right? 21-6 in the third quarter. It was a great read by Van Ginkel. It's easy to go, LOL, Daniel Jones, look at that pick 6, but it's not a QB issue there. That's just great defense.
Yeah, it is. Overall, I thought the Vikings defense was really good. I mean, Van Ginkel was really good, but they were sort of sharing the wealth around with the pass rush. Everybody was making a play here or there, and I think a big part of that was this is what happens in that Brian Flores' defense. Like, they are so confusing. They're still operating their I don't know what's happening in this play strategy, and that frees up people with either one-on-one rushes or simply unblocked rushes, and everybody was taking advantage of those plays. So Van Ginkel made a few plays, Grenard had some pressure, but guys like Jerry Tillery were showing up with a play here or there because of the favorable matchups that this defense is creating, and it causes confusion for quarterbacks like Daniel Jones. So that was the thing to watch coming in for the Vikings, what feels like a lost season because of J.J. McCarthy's knee injury. The defense looked really good. Again, it's been upgraded in talent. It looks like it's going to absolutely be a force this year. And then the bonus is also you got week 1 Sam Darnold, and there's also the outside possibility that Kevin O'Connell is just this good. And what if he's actually rescued Sam Darnold?
I'm going to put some stats to it. It's just a fun narrative to keep track of here, Sam. We'll talk about it in a second. But Darnold deserves credit for the game, right? Played really well. Beautiful corner route early on. The slant to Justin Jefferson for the touchdown. The touchdown to Jalen Naylor on the wheel route, which was under pressure, right? He's getting hit and makes an excellent throw. Sam Darnold deserves credit. He was fantastic.
Yeah.
We've been joking about his performance in his first 3 games of the season, not just the first 3 weeks. So I did look it up. Do you know the difference? So this is a 2021 thing.
Okay.
Since 21, where he's had 2 3-game stretches where he's played really well. And then last year he only had 1 start, which was week 18. So I'm taking those starts. It's like 8 starts now in his first 3 games of the year. Sam Darnold has an 84 passing grade in those games. During those seasons, though, all other games, it goes from 84 to 45.
Yikes.
Just saying, it's an unbelievable disparity.
He also, what is his entire career? Because he won, his first game in the NFL, the Jets put up 48 points. Okay, he wasn't.
But the next
phenomenal.
few weeks weren't great.
No. But
he didn't grade
But that's
well.
what I mean. What is week 1 Sam Darnold? Is it genuinely Hall of Fame Sam Darnold? Then every other week of his career.
Did someone else have that? Who else was Geno Smith at one point was like Mr. Week 17.
Yeah, right at the end of the
That's
season.
what it was.
Him.
But Darnold's first year, it was his 4-game stretch at the end of his rookie season.
Yeah.
Where it was like him and Aaron Rodgers had the highest grades during that stretch. So that was fun for the narrative. So again, I'm just no overreaction Monday from me here. This is your calculated analysis. Not that the shouty shows are talking about Sam Darnold right now. That's not big enough news. But they would say something like, Sam Darnold, bench JJ, Sam is the future. They might say something like that.
All right, that's going to ruin it. His 2020 opener against Buffalo was a 37 grade, but every other week 1 of his career seems to have been very good.
How come his whole career is either like 80s or 40s?
Because that's his life. Sam Darnold has always been.
So that's
guy.
the only caveat emptor here. Buyer beware. Be careful.
Look at you breaking out the Latin.
Yeah, I learned that in high school. Great. Shout out to Mr. Richard, taught us all that. There's just a little bit of a track record here for Darnold. So give him all the credit. Nice job. Got 2 more weeks of this, and then we'll see. I want to see him get over this hump and see what happens. And I think that's the challenge for O'Connell and the Vikings. Is it's not just this these are splits, right? These are splits that will offset at some point. But the key for O'Connell and the Vikings is the consistency. How do you develop consistency in a guy who has been an absolute roller coaster ride throughout the majority of his career?
This is the problem. So this is where our show differentiates itself from most other shows, is that if Sam Darnold is just having week 1 Sam Darnold this year, it's going to look exactly the same than if Kevin O'Connell has actually fixed Sam Darnold and he's about to be the next Geno Smith or the next Rich Gannon or the next veteran quarterback that was thrown on the scrap heap and has been rescued in a new environment with a new coach, right? If whichever one of those 2 things is true, either Sam Darnold is still the same guy and is just about to regress in a week or 2, or actually he's been completely fixed and he's now on this track to the Pro Bowl the way Geno Smith was, it looks the same, right? That week looks the same in either one of those outcomes, and there's really no way of knowing which is true other than to sit back and wait and see how many weeks this plays out for. But week 1, Sam Darnold was fantastic, and that's how the Vikings end up winning this game comfortably.
Mike remembers. My buddy Mike's watching around. He remembers caveat emptor.
Yeah.
He remembers that.
Yeah.
From senior year in high school. Yeah, so we're going to give you We're going to just be the wet blanket of reason sometimes. And you might overreact to things, but we won't. Sometimes we will. We'll let you know. Anything else on Vikings-Giants? One last thing. So the Giants, I thought the way they were playing, summing up the NFL and not allowing big plays and everything underneath, I thought the Giants were playing really, really soft zone.
Yeah.
They were playing really deep with their zones, and Darnold was opening things up in the at the intermediate level. It was almost like they were playing like there was a Tyreek Hill on the other side where you're just like, hey, nothing over the top, which therefore opens up the rest of the field. Darnold and the Vikings took advantage.
Yeah, which to be fair, they kind of have, right?
And they have with Jefferson.
Like different type of player, but absolutely a guy that can punish you deep. The bigger problem to me with that is, okay, you're playing this hyper-conservative soft zone with a collection of personnel that was hand-curated for an aggressive press man, exposing scheme. Like Wink Martindale's defense, everyone's playing cover 1, cover 0 almost the entire time. You're out in an island the whole way. Now, all the guys that were specifically chosen for that are being asked to play soft zone with your eyes on the quarterback.
And the front four that you're supposed to win with now. Wink's gone.
Right.
Wink's at Michigan, still blitzing 60% of the time right now.
God bless him.
You've got a 4-man rush where Dexter Lawrence, still the man, still dominant up front, 6 pressures out of the 13 that were accumulated by Giants players. So almost half of the accumulated individual pressures came from Dexter Lawrence per first run PFF. Brian Burns with a 57 grade on first run. Kayvon Thibodeau with a 48.
I mean,
those guys are supposed to be winning up front to allow
Yeah.
the back seven to do their work, and it wasn't happening.
Burns can't have that kind of game if he's going to justify the deal that they gave him. Like, he needs, they have invested huge in Brian Burns, who is supposed to be the complement to Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence wrecked shop in that game. Brian Burns did not. That happens for every elite player. You're going to have a game where you don't make an impact, but he needs to make an impact as consistently as possible for the Giants because of the investment that they made in him. We're being asked, do you have a Daniel Jones overreaction?
No.
No?
That's
Nothing.
Daniel Jones.
He's Daniel Jones.
I have a stat.
Okay. What's your stat?
Jason Dubow
Yeah.
from AP. It's Dubow.
Josh Dubow, right?
Josh. My gosh. Sorry, Josh. I know you listen as I'm trying to find it. Something to the effect of, where was it? I put it somewhere. Oh, it's on Slack. I slacked it to myself.
You're terrible at this.
I am.
Is this your first show?
No, why would I overreact to Daniel Jones in like year 6 when he plays just like Daniel Jones from years 1 through 5?
Uh-huh.
What's the overreaction?
He was got it back.
Josh Dubow, listener of the show from the AP, at Josh Dubow AP.
Mm-hmm.
Since signing a 4-year, $160 million contract with the Giants before last season, Daniel Jones has thrown more touchdown passes to the opposition, 3, than to his own team.
That's not good.
2.
Yeah.
Remember, he only had 2 touchdown passes last year.
Yeah.
And apparently he had 2 pick sixes last year. Add 1 more to the resume yesterday.
Yikes.
And it is not a great stat. If you also saw my tweet that's going viral, passing touchdowns around the NFL are just down generally anyway.
Down big.
So it's not just a Daniel Jones problem.
No, though specifically, more to the opposition than your own team is a Daniel Jones problem.
Not great, but that's all I have on Vikings-Giants here.
All right.
Tennessee Titans at the Chicago Bears.
Oh, boy.
What?
Oh, boy, this game.
Bears win 24-17. You referenced hours ago, this is going to be a record-long show, by the way. You referenced hours ago the 2 teams who won a game with no offensive touchdown.
This is the other one.
This is the Bears. I saw the Twitter rumblings. It reminded us all of Twitter back in 2006 when the Bears were winning games. Yeah, Twitter was invented in 2007. But when the Bears were winning games with Rex Grossman under center, this is how they were doing it. So are we going to overreact to Caleb Williams and his performance as he finishes 14 of 29 for 93 yards, sacked twice for 29 yards?
Yeah, wildly inconsistent game from him. He missed a touchdown to Keenan Allen, but then, picks up a 4th and 3 in the same drive, but could have had an offensive touchdown, just missed the throw. And that was kind of the story of his game. Like, he had a lot of plays there that he didn't quite make, didn't get it. he felt like watching him play in this game felt like a guy that was just like too amped up and out of control. You know, he was playing like this was a lot like he had to play at USC, where I got to make the play. And this is part of the concern, right? Can you settle down? Can you play more within the structure? Can you just take the edge off it a little bit? We don't need you to go crazy every single play. And like this play, he felt like he was still in that mode and was trying to do too much all the time, whereas we really just need that every so often. And that's bad enough if it's just getting into trouble, like that massive sack he took where he tried to get out of multiple tackles and just kept going backwards. But it's even worse when you're also, missing the throws that are there to be made, like the touchdown to Keenan Allen that he didn't hit. Like, one of those two things has got to change. You've either got to let's be a little bit more straight-edged and not, so crazy, or make the throws that are there and before you go try to make the crazy things happen.
Yeah, I don't want to I'm not going to make excuses for Caleb Williams. I don't want this to sound like excuses. Remember when I always reference John Madden when Brett Favre would come out firing the ball into the stands on his first couple. It's like, oh, Brett, he's just so
stamped up.
He just loves football so much. He just overthrows guys by 20 yards.
Yeah.
So the first few snaps of Caleb Williams, I told you, watch his first 6 snaps, and you tweeted one of these. Watch his first 6 dropbacks. 3 of them have Tavondre Sweat and Keandre Coburn, a combined 800 pounds of man, like in his face almost immediately.
Yeah.
And the Bears pass blocking wasn't bad necessarily. I'm just saying, like, early on, he's immediately got these 360, 340 pounders in his face, one of which was Coburn is in his face. He scrambles around. It's a 19-yard sack. It was a terrible play. It was a terrible play by him. He did have Keenan out. I think it was Keenan, right? Open on the deep ball that he missed.
Yeah.
So he missed that. He fires a line drive off a safety's helmet, a quarter safety. Just timing was off. And then so all of these things are going wrong early. Great. And then it felt like, okay, the Bears actually did a decent job of getting him some easier completions. And he kept missing them. He was missing some gimmies in the flat, sit route, lack of rhythm generally. Then it felt like he was pressing. So because we've never seen him play well at the NFL level, I don't want to just like assume that he was jittery and there was a lack of rhythm and he was pressing and all that stuff, because he could just be terrible. Like that's a possible, it's a possible outcome. Like if Josh Allen went out tomorrow and had a terrible game, you would say, oh, here are the reasons why he had this anomaly of a game. We don't know if this is an anomaly for Caleb Williams yet. It was bad. But
that's a quick cut that for social. What if Caleb Williams just is terrible after week 1?
Maybe he is. Dropped a shotgun snap on 3rd and 2. Like there was a lot of bad stuff. But I want to chalk it up to it felt like he was pressing.
Yeah.
I don't think he's naturally, innately, inaccurate. I also think I'm strangely high on the Titans coming out of this game.
So
the Titans defense was very impressive to me.
There were a couple of games where I don't know if the result was wrong in terms of like once it's all done, I'm not sure you can say Chicago shouldn't have won this game, but there was definitely the Titans gave it away. Like there was a period in this game where the Titans should have been winning this going away, and this would have been like a double-digit win for Tennessee. And then the game really swung on a blocked punt from Chicago, which they scooped and scored. Owens scoops it up, gets in the end zone. So now what was a really comfortable lead for Tennessee, with them looking really good, their defense looking nasty, the Titans DBs were all over those Chicago wide receivers. Like they were in their hip pocket every single play pretty much, aside from the Keenan Allen one where he missed the touchdown. The Titans running backs were running wild. Will Levis was making some plays, psychotic plays, but still making the plays. And everything's coming up Tennessee. And then the blocked punt put Chicago not just right back in it, but like huge swing in their direction. And then obviously you have Levis. I don't know if he tightened up or if eventually Levis being Levis just came to the fore. He had, obviously the play that really ended it was the ridiculous Daniel Jones-like pick 6. He'd done that earlier in the game, right? He'd been stumbling out of pressure and like backhanded a throw just to get it away, and it was like a safe incompletion. I don't know if that was by design or if he just got lucky that first time, tried to do it again the second time and just pitched it to Tyreek Stevenson for a walk-in pick six. But this was a game Tennessee should have had wrapped up and instead found a way to throw it away and give it to Chicago.
I was hinting at it last night on the live stream. It was the Levis pick six that was among the worst throws you'll ever see. And
utterly ridiculous.
And we always joke, it was Matt Schaub overtime against the Seahawks, and he was like falling down in pressure, and he just throws it up, and throws it right to Richard Sherman for a walk-off pick six for the Seahawks. This was that bad. To the point where I was texting our friends at PFF. I was like, this needs a special kind of bad grade, an extra special kind of bad grade. But this is what allowed the Bears to win the game. He was falling down and just shovels it to Tyreek Stevenson for a walk-in pick six.
Did you see the picture where mid-play he's down on his knees, hands in his head, like, what have I done? Yeah, that's the kind of throw that'll turn that reaction.
I mean, Jameis is looking at him being like, dude, what do you just take a sack, man?
It occurred to me yesterday. He's just the next in the line of Jameis successors. Like, Will Levis plays the game like Jameis Winston, which is to say absolutely lunatic-like in every way, right? He's making throws like that, which is pure Jameis. And actually, the first one was even more Jameis. Like, I think he'd been trying to get out of pressure to his left, got hit from his left, and was like stumbling to his right like a drunkard, right? And as he's falling to the ground, like backhands it away in the vague general direction of somebody. That was like straight out of the Jameis highlight reel. And then you've also got like launching himself into hits. Like Jameis scrambled like a crash test dummy, where there's just like limbs flailing everywhere as his body is being poleaxed by a linebacker like 7 yards short of the first down, right? Levis was doing that. I told you there was an image. I assume it was a flak jacket, but it looked a lot like they were duct taping a pillow to his back. And I'm like, and honestly, that would make sense. Like if I had genuinely seen them strapping a pillow around Will Levis's back, given the hits that he's taken, I was like, yeah, that figures.
In week one.
Yes.
In week one. Nick C in the chat says, Will Levis makes the league better.
He does.
I agree.
I love watching it, but it is lunatic play.
So, I mean, I'm in the middle. Like my notes have taken the same type of downturn as the Titans, right? It's like, man, they're really using their running backs well.
It's just like a chronological notes, like everything's good, and then, ooh, dude.
I'm seeing Will Levis. There was points in the game where he's checking down and hitting like a lot of underneath stuff. I was like, maybe they've reeled him in. Maybe they've reeled him in a little bit. A lot of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears. The defense is flying around. 360-pound nose tackles look like, winning pass rushes and in the backfield. There was a lot of good stuff for Tennessee.
Yeah.
And then they blew it. And the Bears capitalized?
I mean, hidden in all this, maybe we'll get to this later with the segment we're going to wrap the show with, but Tavondre Sweat looked really good. I mean, 366-pound people should not move the way he moves. They were using him, as a nose tackle, but they were also lining him up all over the place. Like that guy, like Texas, he was lining up as like a 5-tech out wide. Like, this is insane. That's not a guy that size should not be capable of doing that, and he is.
So I'm kind of excited about the Titans defense. The Bears defense deserves a lot of credit as well. They looked pretty good up front. Darrell Taylor had a really nice game. Remember, they traded for him late in training camp from Seattle. His good game coincided with J.C. Latham's pass pro struggles.
Yeah, whooped him for a sack at one point.
Yeah. I don't another one where I thought the same thing I said about Caleb McGarry. It was like Latham had this dual read where he's keeping an eye on the defensive tackle, and he's not getting enough. He's not trying to get depth whatsoever to handle against a speed rusher, and just gets wrecked. I just don't know if that was a mental error more than anything.
That's exactly the kind of play that I don't think he has the physical capability to make.
But I'm watching a bunch of his pass sets, and he's getting off the ball and into position pretty well.
No. I mean that type of change of direction where you've got to take the down step to the guy and then back up again. Like, that's the sort of like when I was watching his tape in college, you're like, the thing that jumped out to me was like this leaden footed. He gets stuck in the ground too often, right? He's too heavy footed to make that kind of quick, nimble adjustment. Like, think of a guy like Christian Darrisaw, right? He typifies that sort of dancing bear cliche, where the guy can easily make that step down and then little twinkle toes shuffle out like Fred Flintstone, the tick, like shuffle back out, get into position, no problem, right? Darisaw, Laramie Tunsil, like the best pass blocking tackles in the NFL can easily make that play. J.C. Latham's tape consistently suggested to me that he can't, and that was a play where it showed up.
He looked good in the run game, struggled in pass pro. So those splits, we talked about that during the preseason. Those splits are something to keep an eye on for him. But the Bears defensive front did some nice work. Tyreek Stevenson, Jalen Johnson, another big game. Like, Bears deserve credit on that side of the ball as well, on the defense.
Yeah.
So defense and special teams, and there you go. The 2006 Bears. Mm-hmm. Anything else on this one?
Just, I said this on our instant reaction last night, but Caleb Williams becomes the first number one overall quarterback to win in his debut since David Carr back in 2002. So more than 20 years since a QB taken number one overall has gotten his first W. And, okay, we've just sort of explained they didn't score an offensive touchdown. Caleb Williams wasn't particularly good, made a lot of mistakes. I do, however, think that the takeaway from that, it's not that means it's without meaning. The takeaway from it means the Chicago team is actually pretty good, which is what we've been saying all offseason. Like, this is the best situation that a top quarterback has stepped into for quite some period of time, as proven by the fact that he didn't play very well in his debut and still got a win against a team that also might be pretty useful.
Yeah, I'm interested in this Titans defense going forward, but again, if Levis is going to make those types of decisions, man, it's rough. You just can't do that. All right, let's go. Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. This is a fun one as well.
Yeah.
Good old AFC South delivering. Houston 29, Colts 27 in this one. And as it says on the screen, neither team led by more than 9 points. Another blocked punt that turned this into a game as the Colts blocked a punt, got them back into it for a bit. But I thought the Texans showed some of that championship-type resiliency. One of the biggest plays in the game was C.J. Stroud to Nico Collins on a 3rd and 12 to essentially seal it.
Amazing play.
And my other big takeaway was just Joe Mixon adding a lot to this Texans offense.
Definitely. So that play at the end was an amazing throw. Amazing throw and catch on a 3rd and long in a situation where I think a lot of credit to friend Bobby. I think a lot of play callers would have just run the ball. Like, I don't think they would have even put it in the air to try and pick up that first down. Instead, they take a shot. Absolutely perfect execution from both quarterback and wide receiver. This was not the best C.J. Stroud game in the world, but he made a number of plays like that were the difference. Like that play, he also picked up a 4th down where he slipped over and threw it from his knees and picked over, which I don't know that I've ever seen that before, to the point where I was curious if it was even legal. Like, can you throw a pass from the ground and it actually count? Or is that anyway, he does. He picks up the first down, keeps the drive alive. So I thought Stroud, this was one of those games where you're sort of quietly impressed, where it's far from his best game. And yet, even in a game like this where it's not all going great, he finds 2 or 3 difference-making plays that were huge. Yeah,
I completely agree. I mean, he had a throwaway that was almost picked off. He didn't get the ball out of bounds. I mean, he had some rough ones in there. But yeah, Stroud had to make a few plays down the stretch that were huge, and he did it. And that's still encouraging. To me, the Texans the defense was a little disappointing with all the big plays that they gave up and the big plays that they should have given up that Anthony Richardson missed. And we'll talk about Richardson in a minute here. But I thought the Texans showed a lot of resilience. I want to go back to Mixon again, because he finished, how many official carries was it? 30 carries for 159 in a score. No carry longer than 13.
Yeah.
Because that's what Joe Mixon does. And it's not a whole lot of like forced missed tackles or whatever, but it's just maximizing the run blocking, keeping them on schedule. And I thought he ran the ball really well. And this was missing from the offense at times last year, which was almost more impressive for C.J. Stroud as a rookie, that they had spurts in the season where the run game was very ineffective, more pressure on him as a rookie quarterback, and he still produced. I just think they have, not that you need balance. You don't need 30 carries and 30 pass attempts, but you need more ways to win, and I think Mixon adds an extra way for them to win this year.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes, like, Mixon is the running back that Bobby was looking for, right?
Yeah.
And we've spoken to him. We know that Bobby wanted that player. Like, he didn't think he had it last year. It was obvious from the games that they didn't have it last year. And Mixon, at least in week 1, was that difference. They were able to rely on him, particularly late in the game. They were able to rely on him. And he definitely made a difference in this game. So, yeah, the Texans' offense might be more dangerous than it was a year ago. Nico Collins was an absolute beast in this game. You've got the 3rd and 11 play that we were talking about. You've also got that. C.J. Stroud just lobbed it deep downfield into double coverage, and Nico Collins was the 3rd favorite player to make that play, right?
Yeah.
Both Colts had a better beat on that than Collins did, and he just went up between them into the gap and took it away from both of them deep down the field for a big play. Collins was amazing in this game. So it's funny, you're sort of looking at, like, what is the dynamic going to be from these 3, let's say, big Texans receivers? You've got Nico Collins, you've got Tank Dell, and you've got the newly acquired Stephon Diggs. Well, the key appears to be, let's give the ball to Nico Collins as much as possible. He'll make all the great plays. Tank Dell's dangerous. And then as long as we just feed Stephon Diggs a touchdown in the red zone, we're good. He'll be happy, and everything's hunky-dory. So
I was thinking that. Just get him his touchdown.
Yeah.
Get him the touchdowns, and it's good. We talk a lot about 4th down decisions on the show here, failed, otherwise. We'll talk about a bad punt later in the show in a couple hours.
Interesting one here.
DeMeco Ryans, it's 22-20, and 4th and goal from the 2, 4:44 left in the game. And you're up 2, and DeMeco Ryans goes for it. Now, I don't think he deserves a ton of credit for this. I mean, he deserves credit. I'm just saying, like, this is a slam dunk, right? You don't want to go up 5. And, there's a theory, like, if you look at how teams play, there's a theory that you're better off being up 3 than 4. Right? Because if you're up 4, the opposing team needs a touchdown. They're going to play with all 4 downs, and you're actually more likely to lose. So this would have put the Texans up 5. And the other thing, if they kicked a field goal, and the other piece of this is if you score a touchdown, you're up 9, right? It becomes a 2-score game. But either way, this aggressiveness from the 2, and if you fail, of course, they have to go 98 yards. So this ended up being the difference in the game because DeMeco Ryan goes for it, and they get the touchdown to go up 9.
But to me, so this had the 2 interesting decisions. That one was the first one. To me, the second one is even more interesting. The Colts are now replying to that touchdown, right? So they are driving. They're now 3rd and 1 from the 1, so 3rd and goal from the 1-yard line. They lose yardage on that. So now they are 4th and goal from the 3, right, with 2 minutes and 20 left on the clock in a situation where they need a touchdown and a field goal for the game, right? Now, if you need both, I think a lot of people would say kick the field goal, get the first one, and then you need the touchdown anyway. Instead, they go for it. And that was the play where Anthony Richardson has to plow through somebody at the goal line in order to get the points. If he doesn't make that play, if he gets stuffed on contact and fails, they went for it. They didn't get the score at all, and now they're still down 2 scores, and when they could have just kicked the chip shot field goal.
Yeah. Was that what you thought I was talking about?
Yeah, well, that's where I thought you were going initially.
Oh, okay. So I was giving DeMeco Ryans credit for his going for it, I thought, led to the win for the Texans.
Yeah, sure.
And then the Colts one was like, yeah, this is do or die. Game's on the line here.
Right.
Got to talk a little Anthony Richardson, who finishes 9 of 19 for 212. That's 11 yards per attempt, 23.5 per completion, two touchdowns, 1 interception. I mean,
with one of the craziest throws that will occur this season already on his tape.
So as bad as Will Levis's throw was, where we were sending text messages to friends being like, hey, make sure this looks as bad as anything else that we've graded since 2006 when we were with PFF. Similar text messages were sent on the other end for Anthony Richardson. Like, this is one of the best throws I've ever seen.
It really is.
It was unbelievable. Under pressure, in stride to Alec Pierce for a 60-yard bomb.
And you were comparing earlier, Trevor Lawrence to Andrew Luck. This felt like an Andrew Luck type of play where
just plus 20 yards down the field.
So the very start of that play, he slipped on his drop back. So he slips, he's losing his footing. He's then under pressure, and off his back foot, he puts the ball 66 yards in the air to Alec Pierce, and in a perfect spot, like exactly leading him to where it needs to be. Pierce catches it in stride, touchdown. Utterly ridiculous throw. Genuinely absurd. And this is becoming an overused trope, but how many quarterbacks in the NFL can make that throw? It's not many.
Oh, literally none. I mean, sometimes you want to know why that's overrated as a
It's overrated because it's too used.
It is. But it's
like how many
the one year where Ryan Tannehill had, I think, the 2 best throws in the NFL.
Sure. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Which were like this,
itself.
which was like the post while getting hit, where it's 50-plus yards in the air. Like Ryan Tannehill has made these throws. But not like this one. This was fading away and getting hit and in stride. It is one of the best throws I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was unreal.
I mean, it's one of the longest throws in the air in the NFL over the last several years, and he did it off his back foot, and it wasn't underthrown. It was like in stride, perfectly positioned, as if he'd stepped into it and delivered it perfectly. Like I said, one of the reasons that, overused thing is useless is because usually it's like, how many quarterbacks can make this throw? And the answer is 16.
Yeah. 20 to 28.
This throw, Josh Allen can make this throw. Maybe Mahomes can make this throw. Herbert, is that it? I mean, it's not a long list.
Yeah, it really was unbelievable. So here's Anthony Richardson's game. One of the best throws of all time. You have a dig route to Ashton Doolin, which was also spectacular. Laser beam.
Threw it through his hands.
Yeah, and then Doolin takes it for a whole 54 yards. This is why you're averaging 23.5 per completion.
That one was Favre-like, where the velocity on that ball just looked different. It's like that one's going to hurt catching it.
I mean, Anthony Richardson's going to be fun. I know for fantasy people, he's going to be a real fun because you're getting some high volume or high ceilings here for Richardson. So you have that big time throw on the dig. He also has A.D. Mitchell wide open twice for 2 touchdowns. So these 9 complete. If he just hits 2 more passes, he's got 11 completions for probably 310.
And in particular, A.D. Mitchell, right? Like his box score is going to read 5 targets, 1 catch for 2 yards. You're like, what happened to A.D. Mitchell in this game? You're like, well, 2 touchdowns were missed by Richardson, and he would have had, I don't know what the yardage is, but add 2 touchdowns to his tally, plus whatever it is, 50 yards or et cetera.
That was similar to, again, in 2 hours when we get to the Bucs game, Jalen McMillan was wide open deep 3 or 4 times, and then they finally got him with a touchdown. So A.D. Mitchell is wide open for others and for other touchdown opportunities, and Richardson just missed him. So you have this inconsistent accuracy. He also had an average, if you take one of the negated plays and include it, average depth of target of over 18 in this game for Anthony Richardson. It's the 3rd highest. It's the highest since Lamar Jackson in 2021, where he had a game against the Lions where he just kept chucking it downfield. Everything was different in this one. Richardson also was the leading rusher for the Colts with 56 yards on 6 carries in that touchdown that you talked about. So the other pass up there was Alec Pierce, who that was more of just a jump ball. Just kind of threw it up. Alex Pierce goes and wins. So Pierce ends up with 3 catches for $125.
He's turning into that player who's just every week, most weeks he's not going to do much, but then every other week you're going to get a stat line that looks like this, where it's 3 targets, 3 catches, 115 yards.
I mean, Pierce, he started doing that at times at the end of last season, and it was a lot of hype coming out of training camp. I actually come out of this game thinking, well, if Pierce is going to be this deep threat, and A.D. Mitchell is getting open behind the defense, and Michael Pittman's already a glorified, one of those high-end possession receivers anyway, and Josh Downs is hurt and coming back. Man, this looks like a good group of receivers. But Richardson has to turn those 9 completions into 12. Hit a couple more of those, and then
you need to hit.
Then you're unstoppable.
Right.
So the inconsistency from an accuracy standpoint for Richardson showed up again, but he's also creating these throws that just don't exist for others as well. So it's just an unbelievable amount of variance in Richardson's game.
You really need to hit at least one of those wide open touchdowns to A.D. Mitchell. But this is a perfect example of when you have physical tools like Anthony Richardson, it buys you an amazing margin for error. You can be a very flawed, very inconsistent passing quarterback and make up for a lot of it with a throw that basically only you can make, a run where you just bulldoze through a defender at the goal line, and a few other of these plays. You buy yourself a lot of room for not being great because of the unique physical traits that he has.
Anything else about this game? I mean, there was a lot happening.
Yeah, just wanted to mention Laiatu Latu rushes the passer 20 times, gets basically nothing from it. Welcome to the NFL and welcome to Laramie Tunsil. This is – I went through all the snaps and was looking at him and dude, Tunsil is so good.
Yeah, and Tunsil – got beaten one time by DeForest Buckner for a sack. Tunsil didn't have his best game against non-Latu players, but
Latu spent almost all of his snaps over Tunsil, and then there was, I think,
Tunsil handled some of his best moves.
I think literally the first snap he lined up on the other side, he immediately won, right? Got inside the player like right away with a move. But like Tunsil is just so damn good.
The Colts actually did a nice job. They put Buckner out wide on Tunsil and put Latu over the guard, and that's where they got the sack. Some interesting stuff from the Colts on their defensive front. Again, I just kind of worry about them on the back end consistently. But I think their pass rush can do some damage once Latu gets into a groove and isn't going up against Tunsil all the time.
Yes.
All right. We got one more 1 o'clock game to discuss.
So soon?
Yeah. Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills survive 34-28 with the win. Cardinals got up early. They were up 10-0. They were up 17-3 at one point, and the Bills crept back into it and pull away with the win 34-28.
Yeah, Arizona, I really thought they were going to spring an upset in this game. I think
your Cardinals.
Yeah, and I think the sort of stuff I've been saying in terms of the offense, I think that's legit. Like, I think that offense looked good. It looked potent, like dangerous. They can punish some teams. They got ahead. Josh Allen, had one of those Josh Allen plays early in the game where he fumbled the ball away, and you're like, why does he keep melting down week one every time? And then he kind of pulled it together, and you got the other end of the Josh Allen spectrum, right, where he like launches himself Superman style over Budda Baker, I think it was, at the end zone.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's like, look, this is why I think Josh Allen is number 2. Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, and then it's like, who's number 2? Is it Allen? Is it Burrow? Is it somebody else? This is why I think it's Allen, because he's a cheat code, particularly in the red zone or on, 3rd and 4th and short. There are plays where he decides he's going to make the play. You can't stop it. You literally can't. There's nobody you have on defense can stop that. Like, Budda Baker is a good, hard-hitting safety, and Allen just decided to launch himself over the top and score. And when he makes enough of those plays consecutively, there's nothing you can do on defense to stop it. Now, Arizona's defense is going to be a problem, I think, this year. It was obvious on paper heading into it. They had a few impressive performances, but overall they're just overmatched. And ultimately that stood in this game. Like, the longer it went on, the more it became inevitable that Buffalo was going to put some points on. Arizona's feisty on defense, but they're still just not that good. But their offense is going to make teams it's going to be challenging for teams this year.
Yeah, I just want to follow up on Allen, because every year I'm like looking for those games where they don't rely on him as much, and it's like, well, Arizona feels like a game where they should just be able to pound the rock and hit a few throws and get out of there. But once it became a game, it's like, all right, unleash Josh Allen. Red zone scramble for a touchdown, the Superman one. So he's got two rushing touchdowns, one on a keeper. He's got a 4th and 2 scramble for a first down. He beats a blitz. We always talk, you got to throw hot behind the blitz, right, Sam? No, you just let the unblocked rusher come to you, juke him out of his shoes, roll out and hit James Cook in stride for 25 yards. I mean, man, Josh Allen does some special things. And this wasn't one of his best games.
Yeah.
He kind of got a freebie from, I thought the jump ball, Keon Coleman made a really nice play on a 27-yarder. It was more of a Coleman play than an Allen play. It wasn't one of Allen's best passing performances, in part because of that strip sack in the red zone where he just held the ball forever and fumbled it. But then he just makes these big plays. Khalil Shakir makes some big plays. Coleman makes some big plays. And before you know it, they've got over 30 points.
Yeah, though I do think that like, again, so the Keon Coleman play, I think, is a good example of why I don't know that Buffalo are necessarily going to use him correctly, but I think that Josh Allen is the right quarterback to maximize Keon Coleman. Like, that was a play where from the outset, Josh Allen's mindset was, I'm just going to put this in the vague general direction of Keon Coleman and let him win at the catch point. And he did, because he's good at that. So Allen is going to give Keon Coleman chances that other quarterbacks would not give him based on the read of the play, of his separation level. Allen's just going to give him a shot, and that's going to get him some plays that he wouldn't have otherwise. So that part is good. Allen is a lot, again, like Anthony Richardson in terms of you can win with bad process, which is why I think that's what makes Allen special again. Now, he's a way better quarterback than Richardson, but that's the trait, right? some other quarterbacks, your process needs to be sound every single play because you can't do that. Allen can have bad process and still end up with good results because he's a freak. And it's like, I don't care if I screwed up the previous part. I can fix it by being bigger, stronger, faster, and a better arm than you have. And that's what makes him unstoppable sometimes. And, I mean, in an ideal world, the Bills would love for other people to make some plays and Allen not have to do it all himself. But ultimately, he can. So that's going to bail him out of games a lot of times.
I mentioned Khalil Shakir briefly. Only 3 catches for 42 yards, but one awesome
surfing his way into the end zone on the guy.
I mean, two great plays after the catch, one of which was a touchdown on a screen. We kept asking about what's the offense going to look like, the pass game.
Yeah.
Keon Coleman, 4 catches for 51. Shakir had 3 catches. James Cook had 3. Mac Hollins had 2, including a touchdown. Mac Hollins looking like, he's going to be a part of this offense. Fantasy people very upset that Dalton Kincaid only had 1 catch for 2 targets. I am a little surprised by that. I thought we'd see more from Kincaid there. But 8 or 9 guys all had catches. MVS was also open deep on one where Josh Allen missed him. Remember, MVS is the MVP creator. And so there'll be some deep shots there. I know it's Arizona. I think Arizona's defense is bad.
Yeah.
So, but I think there'll be opportunities for this Bills offense this year with that group. Arizona had DJ Dallas, the first dynamic kickoff return for a touchdown. And then I thought Kyler Murray looked really good athletically.
He did. I mean, Kyler Murray looked good generally.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah. There were, there's maybe some plays left on the table, but I thought overall Kyler Murray looked very good.
He did. Marvin Harrison Jr., his day that everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
1 catch, 4 yards, 3 targets.
Uh-huh.
My thought on this was his first target was a failed back shoulder.
Which I think is on him.
Yeah, and Kyler was palm-upping him. He palm-upped him. Saying, hey, what are you doing? You didn't read this.
Kyler basically throws it at the sticks. He throws it for a first down, right?
Yeah.
And he drops it like literally, if you watch where the ball goes out of bounds, it's basically at the first down marker. Harrison was just late looking back for it and hadn't pulled up at the first down marker. If he's on I think it's him being off on that rather than Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray is throwing a first down back shoulder and Harrison's just late looking for it. So that one is on him. The drop is obviously on him.
Second target, wide open drop.
Yeah. Then you have, he's 50 yards downfield waving at Kyler Murray trying to get him to pass him the ball. That one's more on Kyler.
Yeah.
And that's one of those ones where, normally, a lot of times when people post these screenshots, it's not a fair representation of what actually happened on the play. It's like, hey, how come he didn't see this guy? And the answer is because he's reading the other side of the field and there's a player in his face and, something has happened. This one, Kyler's kind of bouncing around in the pocket, moving, looking for something, and just never gets to, I don't know why, never finds the one wide open guy deep down the field, which is, what the ultimate conclusion of that whole sequence should have ended at.
Panic time yet?
No, it's just
he's wide open.
Yeah.
Just throw that one.
But
one pass, it changes the whole stat line.
Exactly. Imagine if that ends up on a stat sheet. And now you're talking about 4 targets,
2 catches.
Yeah, 4 targets, 2 catches, but for 65 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah,
it's a totally different.
Then it looks different.
Yeah, totally different dynamic.
Greg Rousseau with a huge game for the Bills. Looking good.
I kind of wonder if he's now, he's been getting better consistently in his NFL career. I wonder if he's now one of the next group that's trying to bridge that gap into the already crowded freak show defensive player of the year caliber edge rusher group.
He could maybe get into Trey Hendrickson level.
Yeah.
A tick below the elites.
I wonder if he's already there now. If he's in the group currently with Trey Hendrickson, Josh Hines, Allen, Aiden Hutchinson, Will Anderson, maybe this type of group.
I mean, Hutch last night, man.
Right.
Probably might be in the top group.
Sure. And if he's which one of those guys is going to make the leap into the Nick Bosa, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Max Crosby category?
Yeah, it was an impressive game for Rousseau. And look, the Jonathan Gannon Arizona Cardinals continue to be feisty and playing tough, even across the country in Buffalo. I got good news, Sam.
Yeah?
Manscaped is back.
Let's go.
As is football. It's the best time of year. Football's back. NFL Sundays.
New season, new ball shaver?
Yeah, actually.
Let's go.
True. NFL Sundays, college football Saturdays, fantasy football. This is where your inner GM comes alive, setting the perfect fantasy roster, screaming at your TV, making last-minute waiver moves that either make you a hero or the guy everyone ridicules in the group chat. But listen, when we're over here making sure our fantasy team is dialed in, don't let your personal grooming become the guy that gets left on the bench. So here's what we got. Nobody wants to fumble their grooming routine. That's where Manscaped's Performance Package 5.0 Ultra comes in. The Ultra, acting as your all-in-one grooming playbook. From keeping things sharp down below with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra to taking care of those rogue nose and ear hairs with the Weed Whacker 2.0. So we get the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. We get the Weed Whacker 2.0. It's going to be a great year. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped and get ready for kickoff by heading over to manscapes.com. Here's your code. It's Mike20, MIC20 for 20% off plus free shipping. You'll be drafting the real MVP of grooming this season. What you get is the all-in-one grooming kit. Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is your complete grooming playbook. It handles everything from below-the-waist maintenance to taking care of those nose and ear hairs, as we've already said. Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra groin and body hair trimmer. The Weed Whacker 2.0. And this is a very special bullet point here. Ball aftercare, Sam.
Yeah.
Post-shave, give your most valuable players some TLC. The Crop Soother, Ball Aftershave Lotion, and Crop Preserver Anti-Chafing Ball Deodorant. Make sure you stay fresh and comfortable through every quarter of your day. So that's important. So we got some great stuff here from our friends over at Manscaped.
Is toiletries a term that translates, or is that a British term?
Yeah, toiletries.
Yeah, they're like standard toiletries. Manscaped stuff is really good. I use their shower gel, and they have a beard shampoo. Obviously, I don't have much use for the regular shampoo, but they have a specific beard shampoo that's very good.
Yeah.
So I have.
It's more than just a ball trimmer over there.
Absolutely. They have the beard shampoo. They then have a beard conditioner, and they've got like a brush, right? So the standard, now I haven't done it this morning because it's early morning, and you just get out of the house, right?
You should practice.
You don't
have
time for this kind of stuff. You just get Monday mornings. You just got to get out, get moving. But you get the beard conditioner, and then you get the nice brush, and you put the beard in good shape, and you're all set.
We had at least someone comment last week and said, if Manscaped is back, I'm buying.
Yeah.
And I hope you're going to stick to it.
I hope everybody does. Mike20, MIC20. I would love for people to buy this stuff because the reads are amazing.
Yeah, we never want to lose them. I mean, we got Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas coming up. We need Manscaped to stay with us. So,
by the way,
thanks for supporting the show.
Yes.
Mike20, manscaped.com.
Absolutely. All the people, that were concerned in our new home with this change. Would we be forced to conform? Would the corporate man force us to shorten these shows? We're 2 hours in right now.
No. What's actually going to happen is I don't know when we have a hard out of the PFF studio here.
Well, at some point, somebody's just going to pull the plug on it electrically.
At some point, they're going to kick us out of here. Because we're on to the 4 o'clock games. Denver Broncos at the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle 26, Broncos 20. First win for Mike McDonald as head coach of the Seattle Seahawks.
Good for Mike.
Yeah, good for Mike.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on this game?
There were some wild Bo Nix stats that came out of this game. I think they were probably my biggest takeaway.
Did I send those to you or to myself here?
Yourself, I believe.
Bo Nix finishes. Let's start with the real stat line. 26 of 42.
Yes.
For 138 yards.
3.3
yards per attempt. No touchdowns, 2 picks. Passer rating of 47.5. Also the leading rusher for the Broncos with 34 rushing yards and a touchdown down the stretch there.
Yep. Average depth of target was 6 yards downfield. That feels fine, but it seemed like every time he went over that average, he was throwing the ball to Seattle. Whether or not they caught it, But it felt like every time he targeted beyond 6 yards, it was bad.
He was 2 for 12. On passes 10 yards or more, Bo Nix was 2 for 12 with 3 turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah.
And it felt like 6.
Yes.
It felt like Seattle, not that it wasn't wrong, it just felt like everything down the field had a Seahawk with their hands on it. Not necessarily to catch it, but at least breaking it up. Like they were not, just wasn't good.
So I have one tweet. There's so many tweets.
I had a couple good ones.
So many nuggets. Yeah. This one is from Law Murray, who says, the last time a player had 40-plus pass attempts in week 1 and failed to break 200 yards was Sam Darnold in 2019. It's happened 3 times yesterday. Deshaun Watson did it, Daniel Jones did it, and Bo Nix did it.
Wow. I sent you 2. That's what it was.
Yeah.
I sent them to you.
And obviously, the only one of those guys not on a 9-figure contract is Bo Nix.
From our friend Justice, every QB who has thrown 42-plus attempts with 138 or fewer yards in NFL history, according to StatHead. You have nearly 40-year-old Ben Roethlisberger.
Yep.
The great Jesse Palmer.
The great.
And Bo Nix. After yesterday. And then Ben Solak. Bo Nix averaged 3.3 yards per attempt on 42 passes today. That is tied for the 6th lowest yards per attempt in any game with at least 40 pass attempts since the merger. And so it felt like we were watching history yesterday, and I think we were.
And then Michael Sean Duggar, I sent you this tweet yesterday that said it's almost impressive how many different plays Sean Payton has that just ultimately result in Bo Nix throwing the ball somewhere near the line of scrimmage.
All that said, Denver loses by 6.
Yep.
And I don't want to turn this into let's just attack Bo Nix or anything. But I thought I've generally had some concerns in this offense that likes to throw the ball underneath. Where Bo Nix's game was for the most part at Oregon, it felt like a struggle. Anything at 10+. Now, on the other hand, is Seattle's defense that good?
Right.
Because I saw them in person, Sam.
You did.
And they looked just like they did yesterday. That's what messes with me, Sam, when I say, hey, let's not overrate the in-person. You can't overrate training camp when you're in person. But when they show up week 1 and they look just as locked down as they did in person in training camp, they look just as locked down week 1 against the Denver Broncos. And they're getting their hands on passes, and Tariq Woolen looks like a man-child out there, and Devin Witherspoon's flying around making plays, and Julian Love's picking off passes. Makes me think maybe Seattle's defense is for real.
Yeah, I mean, we did kind of highlight this going in, that this defense, I think, is a particular nightmare for a young quarterback right at the start of his career or the season, right? Like, it had the recipe for a game like this in it. And when when the PFF Plus grades come out, when Premium Stats breaks those down later today, you're just going to see a sea of green and elite blue in that Seattle defense. So it was a really, really good performance by that defense. And I think absolutely contributed to Bo Nix struggling and looking kind of lost out there.
Yeah, so I thought that was a big story of the game. You also had Geno Smith with a career-high 34-yard run for a touchdown.
It's career high. Huh?
Career high. Had to look it up just to see. He had a 32-yarder somewhere else, but 34 was his career high. Seattle had to deal with some offensive line injuries. They already had George Fant filling in for Abe Lucas at right tackle. He got hurt early.
Yeah.
Stone Forsythe had to come in. I thought the Broncos were, again, one of my things to watch was this Broncos defensive front that had been hyped up, even though on paper doesn't look great. They were getting after Geno Smith early on, but I think that slowed down too as the game went on.
Yeah, like multiple players. So Zach Allen, Jonathan Cooper, and Baron Browning in particular were like constant forces throughout that game. Now, a big part of that is we know Stone Forsythe is not an NFL caliber offensive tackle, and they were forced fairly early into that reality. So that has to be a factor in that, right? That their right tackle just doesn't belong at this level, and he's now going up against these guys. But, you would flag that in preseason that Denver's pass rush had been legit training camp. It showed up in this game. The question just becomes, can they sustain it against teams that have 2 starting offensive tackles available?
Yeah, and look, Seattle, they did a really nice job running the ball in the second half. This game was just weird all around. Denver had 2 safeties.
And almost had a third.
Right? Almost had a third. They had 2 safeties in there. At one point, they had 2 safeties and 3 field goals. Right?
Yeah.
And that's how they got to 13 before the Bo Nix scramble to get within a score late. Just a strange game overall. For Seattle, I never remember more weeks where I'm complimenting running backs, but Ken Walker outstanding in the second half of the game in particular.
He had a great play for the go-ahead touchdown. So there were 2 plays that Alex Singleton and Riley Moss combined to screw it up. That was one of them where I think they both missed tackles on him. No, so Singleton missed a tackle in the hole, and then Riley Moss missed contain on the outside, and then Kenneth Walker ends up beating the tackle and then beating contain to score the touchdown. Later on, some combination of Moss and Singleton screwed up a coverage bust on Charbonnet's touchdown. Yeah, so those 2 guys screwed up a play combined for 2 touchdowns to the running backs.
Yeah, I thought Seattle's offense was kind of uneven, but then you have like a Geno scramble, the Charbonnet touchdown, Ken Walker running hard, and Tyler Lockett showing up. right? It was I think they struggled kind of getting the ball to DK Metcalf early on. Jackson Smith and Jigba had a couple quick first down conversions early. But at the end of the day, it's Tyler Lockett, old dependable, once again, as I'm ready to write him off this season with 5 out of their 11 first downs through the air, 6 catches on 7 targets.
And part of that, I think, is a matchup thing, right? So Denver does this every time they play Seattle. They put Patrick Surtain on DK Metcalf.
Fun back and forth between
It
those
is,
guys.
but I also think that it's a unusually favorable matchup for Surtain. I think stylistically, DK Metcalf is exactly the type of receiver I would want Patrick Surtain covering every single down. So I think it works really well for them. But that means that Tyler Lockett is on the other side where he's going up against Riley Moss a lot of the time. I think this is one of the same thing, right? Surtain essentially is taking away DK Metcalf, but the flip side of that means Tyler Lockett is going to eat because he's going up against a substandard, on current information, starting corner.
So Seattle had answers, man. They had the run game, Charbonnet out of the backfield, Tyler Lockett. Thought they did a nice job coming away with the win. I was real impressed with Seattle's defense.
Same. Great play by Kayvon Wallace to force a fumble at one point. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention was, in addition to Bo Nix looking generally lost and not great, it was quite a worrying tendency to stare down receivers. Like, he would just lock on and try and hit that guy. That's not going to fly. I don't know if that was just a product of the confusion of the defense or if that's actually a tendency that he's going to have at this level, but that can't do that in the NFL.
Yeah, so I want to give Seattle credit because I think they're good and I like their personnel and everything. I don't know how much of this is Bo Nix and the Broncos.
Right.
And I don't know how much is really, man, it felt forced getting the ball down the field. It felt like a big struggle for them. So something to keep an eye on going forward. I think Seattle deserves credit, and it's a little worrisome from a Denver perspective that they can't get the ball down the field, and that my favorite players, Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, can't crack the rotation.
That's annoying, yeah.
Yeah. Might not be a good fit for Sean Payton there. I don't know. But, hey, they drafted him. We good there?
Yep.
Los Angeles Chargers 22, Las Vegas Raiders 10. Is that next on my list here? Jim Harbaugh with a win.
Gets a W.
In his return. The 1-0 Chargers. J.K. Dobbins with a nice breakout.
Fair play.
Again, good for J.K. 10 carries for 135, 61-yarder in there. Found the end zone. And just people forget, Sam, because of all his injuries.
Yeah.
Do you know what he's averaging yards per carry in his
a
career?
million.
It's like 5.8.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, well, the Ravens had, the Gus bus
Right.
averaging 5, where Gus averaged 2.4 yesterday. The Ravens had everybody averaging 5. But J.K. Dobbins, man, always been a big play threat when he's been healthy.
Yeah, and he didn't look quite as explosive or dynamic as he has earlier in his career before all those injuries. But for him to come out and be a big factor in this offense and still, rack up 135 yards, that speaks for itself. Just a great story. Like, those are bad injuries, the potential career enders for him. And instead, he may end up emerging as the number one back in Los Angeles pretty quickly as on this evidence. So, great story. Fair play to J.K. Dobbins for that resilience, that sticking to it and coming back and being a big part of this game. And actually, there were kind of comeback stories across the board for the Chargers. Like, Joey Bosa had a big game, was balling, forced fumble on Zamir White. Khalil Mack made a bunch of plays. Like, all these guys that have been sort of struggling with injuries or declining or had just fallen away showed up for this game.
All right, 2 things that were very Harbaugh-like. We talked about the blueprint or the fingerprint of Jim Harbaugh.
Fingerprints of Harbaugh.
The fingerprints of Harbaugh in 2 different places. I'm going to show you.
Okay.
First is Justin Herbert's stat line.
Yep. 17
of 26 for 144, just 5.5 yards per attempt. 1 touchdown, no picks. Very J.J. McCarthy, workmanlike in a win. The second one, the Raiders' rushing attack had the lowest EPA per play of any rushing attack in the NFL. The Chargers' run defense was outstanding. And the Chargers haven't had a good run defense since the 90s.
Right.
Like, when was the last time they had a good run defense? Like,
When
Junior
Jamal
Seau
Williams.
in 94?
When Jamal Williams was their nose tackle, taking up 9 gaps of space.
Yeah.
That was the last time they had a good run defense.
Late aughts,
Right.
mid-aughts with Jamal Williams. No, it's seemingly forever. The Chargers, light up front, pushed around at the point of attack, and it's only 1 game. Joey Bosa had a forced fumble in there, but man, only one game, but they looked much more stout at the point of attack.
Great game by Poona Ford, a big part of that, big body in the middle. Gets a little bonus at the end with his interception based off a deflected pass. But like Poona Ford had already had a great game before sealing it by coming up with that interception. You're right, totally different dynamic. They are not going to be easy to run on the way they have been in the past. Huge shout out to Joe Alt, the rookie right tackle, shifting from the left to the right side. Day one, good luck. You gotta block Max Crosby. Guy gave up one pressure on these first run numbers. And you look at, there's a highlight reel I've already tweeted out that our guy Billy M91 tweeted out of just all these reps. Like he went one-on-one with Max Crosby. He's not getting double team help. It's not constant chips by the tight end. He went one-on-one with one of the best pass rushers in the NFL and shut him down.
Yeah. Really, really impressive first game for Alt, especially in pass protection. The two other things I wanted to highlight before we get to the punt. Ladd McConkey looking sweet on the touchdown with his shiftiness. And then just on Friday, Malcolm Kuntz, the defensive right end that we've been talking up for the last year, opposite Max Crosby. What a breakout year last year. He gets added to IR on Friday. And it is Charles Snowden, 6'7" edge rusher that comes in for the start. He'd only had 6 career snaps coming in. And Charles Snowden, I mean, he just doesn't have a track record of, he's a backup. He's the starter opposite Max Crosby. Tyree Wilson, the number 7 overall pick from last year, we've been watching him closely. Only 6 snaps yesterday. So the guy with 6 career snaps, Charles Snowden, comes in and plays over Tyree Wilson. They didn't get much going from a pass rush perspective. The Chargers.
And to be clear, when I say he shut Max Crosby down, Crosby had a sack and had some other pressure as well. They just didn't come against Alt.
Not against Alt.
They went on the other side or stunts or whatever. So Alt, phenomenal performance as a debut given the competition he's going up against. The other thing we need to talk about this game, Antonio Pierce.
The punt.
Yeah, not just that, but he had some he had some egregious timeouts that he used, but the punt is the big thing, right? A couple of notes on this, right? So effectively, he ends up punting in Chargers territory, down 6 on 4th and 1 with time, winding its way down. 7:15 remaining in the fourth quarter, whilst down by 6 points, right? ESPN had a note. The Raiders are the first team to punt in opposing territory when trailing by 1 score in the fourth quarter on 4th and 1 since
2017.
2016.
Just because 2017 was the year that the Eagles started going for it more,
right.
In 2018 the rest of the league started to catch up.
And then there's a Twitter account out there called the Surrender Index, which essentially indexes how bad a call is when you're punting instead of going for it. This tweet says, Las Vegas decided to punt to the Chargers from the Chargers 43 on 4th and 1 with 7:15 remaining in the fourth while losing 10-16.
43!
With a surrender index of 131.7, this punt ranks in the 100th percentile of cowardly punts of the 2024.
That's this year.
But in the 99.9th percentile of all punts since 1999.
Yeah.
This was basically as bad as it gets in terms of a punt decision rather than going for it.
It's a high surrender index in the Stone Ages.
Correct.
What you're saying.
It's an egregiously bad decision by a head coach making that call. Like, this is the kind of call, if you're an owner, this is the sort of call that would demand a meeting after the game asking, what the hell?
I know they have people that study this stuff in the building.
Yeah.
Every team does.
And not one of them will say that that was the right call.
I know that they do. Just can't do it. I think he doubled down, and I'm going to do something I hate, secondhand quotes that I just happened to stumble across while I was doing my research last night. But essentially said, we got what we wanted, right? We pinned them deep. But it's like within plays, the Chargers were at the same exact point of where you punted from. So, yeah, you didn't really get it's just a defensive coaches, man, sometimes are too trustworthy in their defense.
And yeah, too trustworthy and sort of the most old school.
Yeah. It's not great.
No.
So anyway, that was one of the big questions we had coming into the season was how does Antonio Pierce handle the full coaching job? The full job. right? It's not just like come in and rah-rah and do 8 weeks of be better than Josh McDaniels. This is your program, your show, your training, your practice, your identity, your fourth down decisions, all of it.
Blitz Sports Network in the chat says George Hallis would have gone for it.
Anyway, that's something to keep an eye on. We do have to start moving a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
You got no more use for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Who's next on the list? Tampa Bay Bucks, 37. Washington Commanders, 20. A dominant performance by this Bucks offense. Baker Mayfield finishes. What was it? I just clicked on the wrong thing. Baker's 24 for 30 for 289, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Mike Evans finds the end zone twice. Chris Godwin, kind of an old school Mike Evans and Chris Godwin with a new school. Jalen McMillan, 32-yard touchdown for the rookie, like I said hours ago. Yeah. Also behind the defense at other points, this Bucks offense was cooking.
It really was. I love watching Baker Mayfield play. Like there's this.
You're back in. You back in?
Not yet. No, not yet.
How many weeks before you're back in? You've been out for the last year.
Close. It's close.
You didn't get to fully enjoy last year for Baker. When are you coming? You have an apology letter? What are we doing?
Oh no. I'm just back on the.
How
bandwagon.
about just a contract? Like you're back in.
Yeah. At some point, I'll just officially be back on the Baker bandwagon. But I'm not quite there yet. Though this was a very big step in the right direction. No more Dave Canales. New offense, new season. Can you back it up? And he comes out here as honestly one of his best games for a long time. What I love about watching Baker Mayfield play, number one, he plays with that sort of. He's got that underdog streak to him. He's slightly undersized. He's slightly unathletic relative to other guys. And there's just this like gritty, I'm going to make the play anyway. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick, right? There's always just, you want to root for Fitz because you understand that he's not playing with the kind of hand that Josh Allen has, right? And that you want to see that. Now, Baker Mayfield has an arm that Fitz didn't have, but it's the same idea. There's something about him that's like underdog, Rocky-like that you want to root for, right? Going up against Apollo Creed. There's also the other thing I think that makes it quite endearing is there's a constant threat of danger at all times, right? You always feel like he's just about to do something crazy. And that was, again, Ryan Fitzpatrick always had that. You knew you were only a matter of time away from him doing something insane. Baker's got that even when he's dialed in and in the zone. You're always feeling like he's about to do something silly. And there was a play here where he took off and launched himself in like a Will Levis style, don't take that hit. But he's just so fun to watch. And when he's on, he's really, really good. I mean, this guy was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. Okay, even in the highest end of his range of outcomes, he's probably never going to jump. Certainly Josh Allen and probably not Lamar Jackson in terms of overall level of quarterback play. But he can still be a really good quarterback at this level. And some of the throws he made were fantastic. I mean, Mike Evans' touchdown, he tossed aside Benjamin St-Juste to make that play, but it's a dime from Baker. It's right where it needs to be. Bunch of plays like that in this game. He had a passer rating of 146 or whatever, and it was legit. He deserved it. So I'm not there yet. I've been hurt too many times. But I'm pretty close.
I'm a couple weeks away from really overreacting to Baker on the good side because the bomb to Evans that you mentioned, touch throws that were inconsistent in Baker's game early in his career. He was not a complete one-speed thrower, but he has a cannon for an arm. And when he's, ripping deep outs and everything and seam routes, they look good, but some of the touch throws were inconsistent. We're starting to see more of that. We had questions about Dave Canales leaving and the fact that Dave Canales did a lot of things schematically that worked well for Baker Mayfield. Liam Cohen comes in, calls the plays, little different system. Not exactly the like-for-like system. They were running a lot of similar stuff, though, from what I saw at first glance. You got some of the throwback screens. You've got this balance of getting Rashad White involved in the passing attack, calling those plays at the right time like Canales seemed to do last year. Rashad White finishes with 75 receiving yards on 6 catches. Chris Godwin looks like the best he's looked, I think, in 3 or 4 years.
McMillan looks legit.
McMillan. Trey Palmer still has that deep speed. Bucky Irving looked great running the ball. Still have some inconsistency with Rashad White and the run blocking when he's running, but Bucky Irving is a weapon, as I was kind of hoping out of Oregon for a 4th-round pick.
He looks more dynamic as well. Not dynamic, more explosive. His speed is, I think, noticeably more impressive right now than it was at Oregon.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't run well at the Combine, but he He was very quick and just had good game athleticism. So I'm real impressed by the Bucs. I don't know if the Commanders are terrible. I mean, we've been kind of like convincing ourselves that
Could
maybe
go a lot of ways.
Yeah, that maybe that defense will come together. Maybe it's one of those things that takes half the season. For right now, I don't think the Commanders look very good.
Right.
But the Bucs were very impressive offensively, obviously.
Yesterday. Yeah, they looked really good, particularly on that side of the ball. Jaden Daniels' first NFL pass attempt was a fumble. He just threw it backwards inaccurately.
You know who else had that was Mac Jones.
Yeah.
First drop back, Mac Jones panicked and threw it backwards.
Right. It was a fairly inauspicious start. I think as a passer, it wasn't the best Jaden Daniels game in the world, but his running is legit. Like, he's an athletic threat, and that's going to play. So, again, it's going to buy him some margin for error.
He looked NFL fast.
Yeah. Yes, genuinely. And, I mean, okay, people were laughing at his ability, like his sliding, but the fact that he was doing it was the more important part. Yeah. Okay, it's ugly and it's not necessarily textbook, but the important part is he's trying not to get himself killed in a way that is not, Will Levis isn't doing that, right? And Jaden Daniels in college wasn't doing that. The fact that he's progressed to that, I think, is a good sign that he's trying to protect himself with some of these hits, because they're going to need to rely on that running. And that was where, a lot of the points came from with the read option stuff down in the goal line. So, yeah, a lot of work to do as a passer from this debut performance, but the running threat is going to buy him a lot of room for error.
Commanders are there's a few teams around the league that just seemingly have awful edge rush situations. We talked about Carolina a little while ago and Atlanta, and all of those seem to show up in week one. The Commanders are another one. I know they have Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne on the interior, but Dorrance Armstrong and Cleveland Farrell and Dante Fowler, it's 3 threes. Like, they're all third and fourth rushers on a decent team. The inability to get quick pressure is going to be a big issue, I think, for this defense. Then you have a guy like Emmanuel Forbes, who had got called for 2 penalties on one play, but the face mask penalty was the pass interference anyway.
Yeah, that always
Forbes,
feels a little harsh.
It does. It's
one or the other.
They enforce it as one.
I know,
it was just kind of funny.
Don't call it. Like, take your pick. It's one penalty.
We could ask Dean why they have to embarrass people like that. Dean, why did they embarrass Emmanuel Forbes and call it 2 penalties when it's enforced as 1? Anyway, I think the Commanders' defense might be in for a long season.
Yeah.
Daniels, probably could have played in structure a little bit more. His passing grade's going to be about half as much as his rushing grade when the PFF grades drop, all part of PFF Plus. So just keep an eye on that. 7 scrambles on 37 dropbacks for Daniels.
Brian Robinson had a really good game.
He did.
Ran hard, was really good as a receiver as well. Like, he looked dynamic as opposed to just, takes what's there type of running back. This was a really good Brian Robinson game.
So again, I'm a couple weeks away from thinking the Bucs are making a playoff run with Baker. They got the Lions next week though, so we'll see. Big test.
Yeah.
Going back to Detroit where they lost in the playoffs, but man, impressive week 1 from Tampa Bay and particularly their offense. All right, the last 4:00 game. Dallas Cowboys 33, Cleveland Browns 17. Feels like it wasn't this close.
Yeah, absolute stomping.
It was 33-10.
Absolute stomping by Dallas, who, the freshly minted Dak Prescott coming off his giant contract signed hours before, agreed to. I don't know if he actually signed it, hours before the game. Imagine, I tweeted this, right? Can you even imagine, put yourself in the headspace, how euphoric would you be if you had just put your name to a piece of paper that put $80 million in your bank account, like a signing bonus? As soon as you sign that, $80 million is winging its way into your account, right? And then down the line, there's another, what was it, 240 or something coming his way. Can you even imagine how amazing you would feel that day? That dude's just going out here like loving life. This is awesome. I'm the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. $80 million in my account now that wasn't there a few hours ago. There's another 180 or something on the way. Life couldn't be better.
You always think that the money is just this, path to happiness.
I think $80 million would buy you a lot of happiness.
Let me give you a little bit of insight into the high-end athlete, Sam.
Yeah.
The high-end athlete says, now that I've signed this contract as the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, now I have to go perform. Now I have to go live up to it. Now I have to go make do, make good, on this investment
You
that Jerry and the boys have made.
There's no way you're thinking that the day the $80 million arrives in your account.
Yeah, you're probably pretty excited.
Yeah.
Probably feeling pretty good
Right.
about it.
Loving life. And that's how he was playing the game.
I mean, Tom Brady was probably feeling the same thing. He's like, I've already been paid. I'm just going to go out there and relax and just announce a game with
Yeah, maybe he should work more at it.
He already
To be
did
fair-
a whole season. This is like season 2 for him.
To be fair, he's hamstrung by the fact that he can't go to meetings and show up at practice and stuff.
All right, we're not going to break
How's
it
he
up.
supposed to
We
be
can't break down the announcing, but
Anyway,
Needs
Dak
work.
Prescott looked good. Dak Prescott to CeeDee Lamb, the highest paid combination in the NFL, looked really good. There was an absolute dime at one point down the sideline over Denzel Ward, who was actually in really tight coverage, and the ball got in anyway. He almost had a pick six, though, at one point, which was not great.
Dak?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this wasn't his cleanest game. I thought that the touchdown to Brandon Cooks was fantastic, 0 blitz, and threw it up to Cooks, and it was a great read. I thought this was I don't want to say a masterclass, but I thought it was a great example of CeeDee Lamb's your top playmaker and getting him the ball early in the game in so many different ways. How many times do we come in here being like, hey, why didn't Marvin Harrison Jr. get involved? Why didn't so-and-so get involved? They got CeeDee Lamb with 3 carries, so you're getting the ball to him in space because he's great after the catch. You're moving him into the slot. You're putting him out wide. He leads the team in targets. So he only finished with 5 catches for 61 because they slowed down offensively as they pulled away. But I thought it was a great job just getting him involved quickly.
Yeah, definitely. What was I going to say about this? Oh, so on the other side, unfortunately, though, Deshaun Watson looks terrible. Still.
He sure does.
Really, really bad. Like, unexplainably bad. I mean, we've progressed past the point of, like, why has he not gotten back to being amazing? Like, why is he awful? How many quarterbacks are worse than him right now as a starter in the NFL? It's not many.
I think so. This is like the Burrow discussion, where so if with Burrow is like, oh, well, he had a calf injury and he didn't play in preseason last year, but then he does the same thing this year, and it's like there's really no excuses other than you missing one of your receivers.
Right.
Now with Watson, let's start with this. They were missing both starting tackles. There's a little bit of something to not having Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin, but like DeJuan Jones was a very good pass protector. It's not like you're completely hamstrung out there. Like the Rams, we still have to talk about the Rams.
By the way, like James Hudson isn't terrible either. Like if you're going to be down to back up offensive tackles, that's about as good as you can do as offensive tackles.
I just want to set that as a foundation. But we're 13 starts in to the Deshaun Watson era with the Browns. Part of that was maybe he's rusty coming off of suspension in 2022. Part of it last year is maybe he's got a little shoulder injury and this and that. This week, hey, Dallas is a really good defense. But we're 13 starts in. Has there been any positive moment or sign or stretch of play from Deshaun Watson, 13 starts in, that gives you any kind of hope for the Cleveland Browns and Watson?
There was like a really nice touchdown pass in this game. It was really good.
I didn't ask if there was a play.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what you're down to. You're like, hey, he threw a really nice touchdown pass that one time. Like, okay, but we're paying him $230 million guaranteed. I'm going to need a little bit more than that.
And sacked 6 times again. And then again, I broke my rules. I tweeted out the screenshot yesterday, but it's 4th and 2 or 4th, whatever it was. And the screenshots are very deceiving sometimes. First one is he's rolling to his left and Amari Cooper's like running around in the middle of the field all by himself. But it was like the previous thing. Like if he had a little bit of anticipation, just a touch, like I know where the route's going to go. And I know that there's not a linebacker to be seen or a safety. And I know Amari Cooper is going to be in the middle of the field, right next to the guy, the elf. He was wide open over the elf. And if I just throw it early, it's going to be a big gain on 4th and 2, a must-have play. And he's just running away, running out of the pocket.
The ultimate irony to all this is that if the Browns had the current version of Baker Mayfield on the roster, they would be the best team in football with the rest of that roster. And instead, they have the guy that they dumped Baker Mayfield for, aggressively traded for, gave an unprecedented, fully guaranteed contract that the NFL collectively still refuses to acknowledge as precedent. No other quarterback contract since that has replicated the Deshaun Watson contract. The rest of the league still sees that as an egregious mistake, effectively, by ownership. And their quarterback is one of the worst starters in the NFL outside of a play here or there. You open the door to this millionaire psychology. I've seen people suggest that Watson got his $230 million. He just doesn't care anymore. Like, he's good. He's going through the motions. It's guaranteed. What does he care? What do you think why is he playing so terribly? Is it pressure to live up to the contract? Is it complacency that he's got the contract? Is the contract irrelevant?
It could be all of those things. There could be this thing that I also don't necessarily buy into, where there's a personality type that works better in like the rugged AFC and NFC North, and like Big Ben and Pittsburgh or whoever else you want to say that's worked in those cities historically. I don't know if there's something to that. I don't know. Maybe he's complacent. Maybe whatever he was doing in Houston that got him into trouble ended up just everything spiraled after that. Who the heck knows? But it's bad.
Yeah.
And look, Dallas is good. Dallas does this to a lot of people. They do. They have a great pass rush. Micah Parsons has 11 pressures or whatever unofficially. He's all over the place. He's batted pass interception. Like, Dallas does this to people. Dallas also has a punt return for a touchdown in this game, right? They just find a way to score non-offensive touchdowns. They do this. But this isn't like, oh man, this was just an anomaly for Deshaun Watson. Sacked 6 times, 3.8 yards per attempt. This is how he's been playing for the Browns pretty much. Doesn't see it, doesn't add value with his legs anymore.
Basically a catastrophe for them.
Doesn't play within structure enough. Like, he didn't play within structure a ton with Houston. He did a lot of like run around plays that he didn't used to do at Clemson. That he made a lot of special plays there, though. He hasn't made any special plays with Cleveland. And there's no rhythm to this offense. There's just nothing to really hang your hat on.
Bad.
That's what I got.
Yep. Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett were both pretty phenomenal in this game. I thought Tyler Guyton held up reasonably well. I don't think his grade is going to be good because he lost enough. And when he lost, it was pretty decisive. But
I saw a couple losses where it's like the back saved him or whatever it was. It didn't become a pressure. But
like, given, so Joe Alt is like the standard, right? Had an amazing game against one of the best players in the NFL. The expectation, I think, going up against Myles Garrett is not good. So given that expectation, I think Tyler Guyton it was an encouraging performance from him, as opposed to every single time you were left one-on-one, you got eviscerated, and we can't have that happen again. So I think Dallas may end up doing it again in terms of this, like, backing yourself into a corner and actually coming out with good players and still being fine.
Anything else on this game? I mean, I'm going to credit the Cowboys coming out strong.
They look great.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Mike Zimmer's defense looking good.
They look great. Turpin, great return. Actually, a really, really nice play, not just hey, you ran to open space and scored. I was kind of bummed that the Cowboys didn't let Brandon Aubrey attempt a 71-yard field goal.
He kicks a 66-yarder that doesn't count.
Yeah.
And then they move back on a false start, 71-yarder.
4 seconds left in the game. Do you give him the shot from 71 or do you throw a Hail Mary? They elected to throw the Hail Mary. I wonder what his strike rate is from 71 in practice. I feel like it's probably pretty good.
You think Dak was carefree on that Hail Mary? That's okay if it's picked. I got the money.
Well, so for example, the reason you don't let him take the shot from 71 is because it can be returned or
blocked.
Yeah, but more I think returned is the fear, and you could give up a touchdown. The Hail Mary was miles from the end zone. I mean, that was in no danger of like not being like that was easily. It was in the field of play. And
I don't know who the safety was, but he was sprinting up to try to catch it on the run, and he would have been ready to go.
If they get it in their hand, it's returnable. Okay, it's always going to be contested, so it's not the same thing. But, I just feel, give him the shot. Everyone wants to see a 71-yard attempt. They do. It's the reality. Even the people like you don't like special teams. You want to see him take a swing from 71.
Always want to see that. Let's have somebody just do a double check, make sure that we really only have one game left. Rams and Lions.
Yeah.
While I tell you about our friends over at Factor. They just sent us a whole bunch of meals.
They did.
And it's so easy to use. It's great. They have a whole menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you always have time to enjoy the nutritious, great-tasting meals. Now, I don't have a microwave.
What?
So I don't. House didn't come with a microwave. Haven't bought one.
Wow.
Just don't. So I use the oven, but it's about 7 to 10 minutes in the oven. Like, it's quick.
It's 2 in the microwave.
In the oven. It's 2 minutes in the microwave. But it was pretty easy, too. I wanted the Protein Plus. They sent some juices with it and everything, too. It was great. Quick and easy. And while my wife was away the last couple days, it was nice, right? Just boom, pop these in, and I got meals. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals with dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. You make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with easy, nutritious options. Treat yourself to restaurant-quality meals that feature premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and blackened salmon. Keep kitchen time to a minimum, as we've already discussed. Factor meals are ready in 2 minutes. No shopping, prepping, cooking, or cleaning up. So head to factormeals.com/SamandSteve50. Now that's Sam and Steve 50.
A-N-D?
Not salmon, the fish I was just talking about.
Correct.
There, right? Factormeals.com/SamandSteve50. Use code SamandSteve50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code SamandSteve50 at factormeals.com/SamandSteve50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active.
I can't tell you how happy I was that this box arrived, because it was the day after we got back from Ireland and I hadn't been shopping yet and there was no food in the house. And you were texting me being like, you can just go to Kroger.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm going to stay disciplined. I'm going to stay fast because the Factor box is going to arrive, and that's meals.
Wow. Great timing, huh?
And it showed up 2 minutes in the microwave, and the food was good. Like, so a lot of time, you know, chicken in the microwave, you're not expecting good things. You know what I mean? You're like, this is going to be rubbery. It's going to be not good. You could taste the char on it. It was nice food.
Yeah, it's legit. So I'm excited. I'm going to have one for lunch once we get back in a couple hours. All right, last game, for real. Detroit Lions 26, Los Angeles Rams 20. Overtime win for the Lions. A walk-off, in fact. David Montgomery, just a will-imposing drive for the Lions down the stretch, as the 33rd team Twitter account said last night. 9 yards per attempt if you take out the David Montgomery touchdown, which of course was shorter.
Right.
Just a dominant final drive for the Lions to seal the deal in this opening Sunday Night Football game.
So I don't really understand what happened in the middle of this game, right? Detroit early looked like they were the better team. They were in control. Like Mike Tirico phrased it, an emphatic 3-and-out was the start of this drive, right? Friend of the show, Alex Anzalone, made multiple impact plays in that first drive.
Flying around. The dome was bumping.
They were flying around. They were making plays. It only got worse when the Rams started to get injuries picked up across the board. Now they're down to like third-string offensive tackles again. Aiden Hutchinson is now basically unblockable because you don't have a guy capable of doing it. You've got to dedicate extra players. You're like, this is just going to be a beatdown. The Lions are well in control. And then you fast forward to it's in overtime. Now the Lions decide, okay, now we're just going to do that again. We're going to absolutely bulldoze the Rams' defensive front, march down the field, comfortable touchdown, win, walk off. But in between those two things, somehow a game broke out where the Lions had to rescue it, and it was close.
It was 17-13 in the fourth quarter. You know how we say a thrower gets the yips?
Yeah.
Right? Let's see. I'm going to try this on. I'm going to try this on for size. Jared Goff got the twoops.
The what?
Turnover-worthy plays.
Oh.
Twoops.
No, that's bad.
You get the twoops.
Don't ever do that again.
Don't do that again. Jared Goff just started throwing the ball to the defense in the fourth quarter.
He did.
The first one counted. It counted an actual interception. He tried to throw the game away again with like 4 minutes left, and it got dropped by Kobe Durant.
Yeah.
Goff,
that would have been an amazing interception. Now it was still.
I mean, it was a bad misread though. It was bad,
but it would have been an incredible pick if he'd picked that up.
Goff Stafford threw a couple to the defense as well. I think their grades are going to end up pretty poor. In part, Stafford just because dude was fighting for his life the whole time. They had the quick hitting passing game will protect like the pressure stats, so to speak. Aiden Hutchinson was winning his reps within 2.5 seconds over and over and over again, and it affected the entire Rams offense.
Yeah, there aren't too many times where you find that one-on-one matchup of edge rusher versus offensive tackle where it's a guarantee. Like he's gonna win every few snaps, and it's gonna cause problems. It's like no. If you don't dedicate an extra body to him, he will win every single rep. So that now call the plays appropriately.
Yeah, this is Joe Noteboom, who started slow anyway, gets hurt. A.J. Curry comes in, and Not great.
I remember they're already down Alaric Jackson. Like, this is
Right.
third string on left tackle going up against Aiden Hutchinson.
And Warren McClendon making his first NFL start at right tackle. So the first run PFF pass blocking grade is in the low 20s. So this will be historic.
Right. I mean,
for the team.
The famous announcer, Chris Collinsworth, who works for PFF, I believe.
I've heard of him.
Phrased it, he's never seen an offensive line in this shape in week 1. Like, this looked like a week 17 offensive line where, injuries have taken their toll. Guys have been banged up, gone down.
This was the Rams in 22, 2 years ago.
But, like, they went into this game with this kind of offensive line, which then got worse when Noteboom went down. You're like, this is non-workable.
They played hard, man, though. I mean, Cooper Kupp still looking like a baller out there. They also had Puka Nacua out after just a handful of snaps.
Yeah.
Kupp finishes with 14 catches for 110, had that ridiculous sideline catch.
Kupp was phenomenal in this game.
He was. And so, look, the Rams I still think are going to be a really tough team. I thought their defensive line, sans Aaron Donald, still did some nice things. But just got wrecked at the end. And so they had to deal with, the defense had to deal with the 2-minute drive at the end of the game, 2-3-minute drive at the end of the game in the fourth quarter. And then they were right back on the field for the beginning of overtime.
Yeah.
And they just looked absolutely spent. David Montgomery just lowering his pads, running dudes over, and the Lions just dominated on that overtime drive.
Against what we expect to be probably the best offensive line in the NFL. Like,
yes.
It was you're tired, you've been on the field a long time, and what is probably the best line of football is showing up for work in overtime to just run the ball right down your throat.
And a huge game for Jamison Williams.
Yeah.
For the Lions, 5 catches for 121 and a touchdown, getting behind the defense consistently. Also had a 13-yard carry in there.
Smoked Tre'Davious White for that touchdown.
This is what they envisioned, man. This is what they envisioned. If Goff doesn't get the turnover-worthy plays, whatever you want to call them, if Goff plays a little bit cleaner, this is, Jamison Williams as the field stretcher and Sam Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs and co-worker Amon-Ra St. Brown.
His best play,
group, man.
So Amon-Ra St. Brown made a few amazing. So he didn't have a particularly big statistical game. Right?
No, he just had 3 catches.
Overall. Yeah, 3 catches for 13 yards. His 2 best plays though were one he caught. I think it was something shallow. A guy coming to hit him on the sideline, and he combined. I've never seen this before. He combined a stiff arm and a spin into the same move, launched whoever the safety was, like, off the field, and then gets tackled. But that was a great play. And then his most important play of the game was saving a pass breakup, or saving an interception rather. He slipped on a slant, and it was going to get picked off instead. But from his knees, he dived forward and one arm swiped it away. He doesn't make that play. That's another turnover. That's probably game for Detroit. They don't get to overtime. They don't win it. So a couple of big plays from him in an unconventional way that you don't usually anticipate. The Tre'Davious White play, that was the type of play that if you're Tre'Davious White, I think you're going to be asking questions about how long you still have in this game based on and it's a sad thing to say because that guy was an amazing player and injuries have just absolutely ruined his career from where it could have gone. But he got beat so bad on the double move that he literally tried to rugby tackle Jamison Williams and just stop it there. Yeah. And he missed the tackle and had to just watch a touchdown unfold in front of him. But I mean, that was the type of play where you look at it and wonder, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, the Rams cornerback group had some questions coming into the year, in part because of what are you going to get from Tre'Davious White. I mean, look, Jamison Williams might just be that guy right now.
Which the Lions, remember, they've been talking him up all offseason.
They did. They traded up to 12 to get him, talked him up all offseason.
And in that coach speak index, that sort of says Dan Campbell tends to tell the truth when he says this kind of thing. And he's been saying Jamison Williams has been looking amazing all the way through camp, all the way through preseason. This shouldn't be a surprise if we believed him. More
truth-telling from Dan Campbell then. Because Williams looks special, man. And if that's the case, like I said, the shiftiness of Gibbs, the mismatch of Laporta, the slot Amon-Ra, the speed of Jamison Williams, I love that combination. Yeah. Goff goes through these weird stretches where he throws the ball to the D.
Yeah.
But look, the last couple of years he's played really well. Stafford, has an end zone interception before the half. That takes points off the board.
Bad play.
Got away with another one over the middle of the field, but he also, man, had some nice throws under pressure. Had to handle a lot. It was a tough one, I think, for Stafford.
I mean, the Rams generally, I think, come out of this game with a lot of credit based off when you consider who they were missing and who they lost during the game. Multiple starting offensive linemen just for this game, even outside of the fact that they were backups coming into it. Puka Nacua, they lost a lot of players. They were under an absolute firestorm for most of that game and still took it to overtime, and had a real shot of winning. They deserve a ton of credit for their performance, I think.
Aiden Hutchinson will end up with one of the best grades of the week by PFF. Win rate's close to 40%.
Yikes.
And, prior to review. So it'll probably be in that range. Go check it all out. PFF Plus revealed later today. Grade release later today from our friends over at PFF.
Yep.
As we're here in their studio. Anything else?
No, not for this game. I think we can now get to our final thoughts. Wrap up the show.
But first, I got to tell you, if you love showcasing your NFL knowledge with some skin in the game,
I do.
Locker is a must-have in your gaming arsenal. Locker contests combine the strategic elements of DFS with the thrill of sports betting into an exciting new game format. Simple to enter and easy to learn, Locker contests allow users to test their wits by answering questions in real time during live NFL games, with the goal being to accurately predict the upcoming action on the field. By correctly answering straightforward game-based multiple-choice questions such as which 49ers player will have the most receiving yards on the next drive, or what will be the result of the Jets' next drive, users can earn points and move up the leaderboard in pursuit of cash prizes. Look, you could play tonight. Locker offers both free-to-play games with cash jackpots as well as a variety of real money contests featuring different types of payout structures, including the top-heavy contests and 50-50 contests. There are contests for every NFL game on the 2024 schedule, so users can pick and choose when to play, whether it's all the primetime games, strictly the games of your favorite team, or any other combination of your choice. Many contests are hosted by Locker's expansive partner network of athletes, celebrities, and influencers, and with chat functionality embedded directly into the app, users can directly engage with the contest host as well as other participants. This dynamic and integrated social experience allows users to celebrate wins, lament bad beats, and talk smack as the action heats up and the game plays out. So if you sign up for Locker through the 33rd team, use code 33rd and you'll get a $50 deposit match. So join today and discover an entirely new and unique way to cash in on your NFL viewing experience. Come and join Sam and I as we play along with the experts at the 33rd team. Again, the code 33rd, 33RD, and you get a $50 deposit match.
Have you signed up to that yet? They dropped it into the 33rd team channels. We're set up. We're ready to go.
Tonight. I'm going to do that later. Do you want to go play? Do we go in there tonight?
I'm already signed up. I'm already in.
Okay, I'm going to go sign up.
I'm waiting for you.
I'm going to sign up today. I'm going to set up my camera today for our instant reaction for Monday Night Football. I got a big day.
Big day.
After a nap.
Yeah.
After a nap, of course. All right, we're going to wrap this up with one extra thing. We got one extra thing after we've already discussed 15 games for 3 hours.
Sure.
We have our biggest disappointments, surprises, and X factors from the day.
Okay.
So I'll let you go first. You did this more on the team side here.
Yeah. So my biggest disappointments, the Carolina Panthers, just an atrocious showing for them. Both sides of the ball, massively concerned by Bryce Young heading into year 2. Everything that you were optimistic about heading into the season was blown apart in week 1 against the Saints. So huge disappointment. Cincinnati Bengals couldn't have been, like, they were the biggest lock out there, right? We said this on our quick reaction show that the Circa Super Contest stuff, $1,000 entry. There's a survivor pool, essentially. $1,000 entry, 14,000, 15,000 entries. 4,895 of them were blown up in week 1 by the Bengals losing to the Patriots. That shouldn't have happened. That's inexcusable for a team that expects to win the Super Bowl. Massive disappointment. The Atlanta Falcons, a lot of encouraging, the offseason was good. Okay, it was weird with Michael Penix Jr., but Kirk Cousins, all the talent there, playmakers. Instead, their offensive line was exposed. Kirk Cousins played badly. It didn't look good. Overall, bad vibes coming out of that Atlanta game. Meanwhile, the Saints look great. So, big disappointment from them. So then my flip side, I'll give you the
We're going to go back
ones?
and forth on...
Well, okay, who are your disappointments?
I went more player-driven. Guys we already talked about. Will Levis, throwing the game away. Throwing the game away when you had it in hand.
Right.
Didn't love that. And then Caleb McGarry, right tackle for the Falcons. I know it's tough going up against TJ Watt, but he had help a whole bunch of the time as well. Gives up the game-ending sack. The game was pretty much over at that point anyway, but McGarry left on an island with TJ Watt. When he was left on an island, wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're up here.
Surprises / most impressed by Tampa Bay Bucks. Baker Mayfield looks great. Year 2. I'm like a couple of games away from jumping back on that bandwagon, but I was really impressed by them. Same division, New Orleans Saints. For everything we just said about Carolina looking terrible, you have to give credit to the Saints for exposing that and for attacking that and for being ruthless and really dominating that game like pretty much nobody else in week 1. The Saints looked fantastic, and they're right in contention to win that division and be a playoff team. And then Dallas, given the expectations, the vibes around Dallas all offseason were negative. It was, are they going to take a step back? Are they worse than a year ago? They looked really good against a team that's expected to be good, albeit with a poor quarterback in Deshaun Watson. But the Browns are supposed to be a legit team, and Dallas made them look like they're not even a factor. So very impressed by the Cowboys.
So my biggest surprise, pleasant surprise from a player standpoint, Keon White for the Patriots. I feel like the Patriots defense needs some level of credit for as bad as we said the Bengals were offensively. Well, New England did it to them. And you could highlight Marcus Jones. You could highlight some big plays from Kyle Duggar. But Keon White finished with the 3 sacks. They moved him up and down the line of scrimmage. We talk about what the coaches have been saying during training camp. They've been talking about Keon White as a second rounder in year 2, ready to break out. They got a plan for Keon White, lining him up over tackles, lining him up inside. Looks like a mismatch. And, for opposing offensive linemen. And with Christian Barmore out, they needed some help on the interior, rushing the passer, and Keon White with a huge game for the Patriots.
Incredibly talented physical specimen as well, so it makes sense for him to
still young as a defensive player, too. It was a tight end just 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
All right, let's go X Factors now. Wrap it up with X Factors.
Yeah, so X Factors, I'm kind of reading this a little bit as unsung heroes of the game. You know, everyone knows the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, or whatever, but some other positions I think that deserve some love based off these games. Linebacker for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Devin Lloyd, was just flying around the field. That guy's so athletic, such a talented playmaker. His NFL career has been inconsistent. He started incredibly well, then regressed, and now he's sort of back to his best play. He was a big part of combating that speed that Miami can deploy across the board in that offense. Devin Lloyd brings speed to the defensive side, was a big part of that game. You mentioned them earlier, way back in the 1990s. The New Orleans Saints, both offensive tackles. So a lot of love for Talise Fuaga, the rookie, but also Trevor Penning, moving to the other side of the line, a first-round disappointment so far. They're a pair of offensive tackles, and I think you were broadening it to the entire offensive line. Real big shout-out to them, big part of that win against Carolina. And then Josh Metellus, the Vikings do-it-all safety, Vikings do-it-all playmaker on the defensive side. Really impressive game again. Such a good player for them. And then 2 guys that we mentioned earlier that I would add to this. Tavondre Sweat, 366 pounds of dynamism on the defensive line.
Dynamism.
And Chris Boswell, the kicker, who made a ton of field goals and also punted as a relief punter.
Look at that. Special teams love here on Check the Mic. All right, my X factors, I think, for week 1, plus what they're going to do going forward. Joe Mixon for the Houston Texans. Carrying the ball 30 times. When they had to seal the deal, 3 straight carries, first down to win the game. The Houston Texans all offseason were talking about C.J. Stroud throwing to Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell and Nico Collins, and all of that's true. But now Joe Mixon adds another element to that offense as a guy that can move the chains, pick up 4 to 5, right? Keep them on schedule and allow that passing game to work. I thought Mixon already looked like a huge addition to that offense that they didn't have last year. And then you could highlight the entire Seattle Seahawks secondary, but Devin Witherspoon in particular, because we wanted to see how's Mike McDonald going to use Devin Witherspoon. Is he going to be the next Kyle Hamilton? Well, Witherspoon's doing what he does in the box, playing against the run, making plays in the backfield, in the passing game, in the slot and outside, getting his hands on passes. Devin Witherspoon, you could highlight Tariq Woolen and Julian Love in that secondary, but I love what Devin Witherspoon does for Seattle's defense and what he will do going forward for Mike McDonald. So those are my X factors for week 1.
Nice. And there we are, wrapped up within 3 hours.
We got 3 minutes to get to the 3-hour mark here.
Who knew we could do a show this fast?
Who knew? Did we do that week 1 last year? I feel like week 1, you're a little bit more long-winded, right? There's more to talk about in week one.
It's a good thing for the people that were concerned the show would be too short now.
I think we're getting kicked out probably in 3 minutes here. We have anyway.
Contractual hard out.
Per contract, we're out in 3 minutes. No, so anyway, we appreciate everybody for tuning in here. We're going to be back again on Wednesday. We have Dean Blandino. We get all sorts of fun stuff during the middle of the week. Don't forget the mailbag. Check the mic at the33rdteam.com. We'll respond to your emails on Wednesdays for sure. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, hit the thumbs up on your way out as well. But you're going to want to subscribe because we're going to be back tonight, because what else are we going to do? We're going to talk 49ers Jets as soon as the game ends, YouTube exclusive. So if you're an audio listener, you should also get to YouTube to get our instant analysis right after the game. If you are listening in podcast land, hit that subscribe button as well. Wherever you are, tell your friends. It's a whole new feed. We're building it from scratch. Check the mic. So we appreciate everybody for already doing that.
Do all the things that help us.
Do all the things that help on the way out. But I have to,
including
like
buying
we
yourself,
put a checklist on the screen.
right? Including buying yourself a Manscaped ball trimmer, like all these things can help us.
Get to Factor, and get to Locker. Do all the things.
Do all the things.
That's what we'll do from now. Check the list. Checklist.
We're going to give you homework.
Check the mic
show.
checklist.
Yeah, we're going to give you homework every show that we're going to need you to do.
Anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday with more Check the Mic.